Senate Majority Leader John Thune said to me yesterday. We spoke exclusively, and he expressed some discomfort with rescissions or the clawing back of funding that's already been appropriated by Congress. Listen to what he told me.
There's a question about pocket rescissions, which is going to be settled, I think, by the courts. But the rescission power is something that constitutionally the president has. The question of whether they use it or not, yeah, I mean, that's obviously something I think that they would need to talk to the White House about. But I think if we get back to doing the appropriations process, which we can do once we open the government up, and in the traditional way, which is having a transparent, open process where the committees function, Democrats and Republicans weigh in, and then we put it on the floor, we have an open amendment process, fund the government the old-fashioned way, I don't think you need rescissions.
And I think
that's the argument I would make to the White House.
I think there's an appetite for that. Have you said to them that maybe don't do another rescissions package? It feels like it's poisoned the well. Have you asked them not to?
I've had conversations on that subject with the White House, and I do think that it's in everybody's best interest, including the White House, to have a normal appropriations process where people are bought in.
So it sounds like you'd like them to stop.
Well, look, I mean, like I said, I want a normal appropriations process. I've made that very clear to my colleagues on both sides of the aisle. I think they both want that, and I think we can accomplish that. And I promised it.
This sounds like a man who's not super comfortable with the way that rescissions have made it that much more difficult to do anything bipartisan. When you hear that he's talking about it that way, that he's told me yesterday, I promised Senate Democrats that they could have a vote on ACA subsidies, I just can't guarantee that that's going to pass. Does that change anything here? Do Democrats risk, when you hear that, looking like they're the ones obstructing at this point?
So what's interesting as I listen to Leader Thune is remembering the conversations that I've had with Senate Democrats who have said they have asked their colleagues, Republican colleagues behind closed doors, aren't you afraid that your voters are going to be enraged with you, that you are not standing up for their health care? And what they say is, yes, but we're more afraid of President Trump. Whether it is Republicans in the Senate or Republicans in the House, they have completely abdicated their responsibility. The House and the Senate, we decide how the money is going to be spent. The framers, I was a history teacher, the framers never imagined that Congress would give up its powers of the purse. And so he can go on and say he's uncomfortable, but what matters is, does he stand up to the person that is the head of his party saying, this is our responsibility as members of Congress, and you are making it not just difficult to do our jobs, you are making it impossible for us to stand up for our people back home, and that's what we were sent here to do.
And I do think that idea of showing discomfort with White House strategies, and at a later point in the interview, which we'll see later on Morning Joe, we talk about the way that he does voice his dissent when he has issues with something in the White House. He said, sometimes I get the changes I want, sometimes I don't. But I think this is clearly an instance where the Senate Majority Leader is saying, rescissions make my job harder, and yet you see the OMB director and others continuing to press these agendas. We're going to leave it there for now, but there's a lot for us to continue unpacking. I'm sure we'll see you again soon. Democratic Congresswoman Becca Balint of Vermont, I thank you for coming on with us. We're going to ask you to stay for one more second, though, because you know that we always ask our viewers, why are you awake? Lauren writes in, she says, I'm behind on writing my postcards to swing states, reminding New Jersey residents of the upcoming November 4th election, finishing these last 150 since 3 a.m. That is like peak grassroots voter activation.
I love that. I love everything about that. I love 3 a.m. I love that she's writing postcards. I love that she's reaching out to other Americans. Perfect.
Endorsed by Way Too Early, the 3 a.m. wake-up call, 100%. Margie emails, I'm listening way too early because I'm driving straight through from Lancaster, Pennsylvania to Tallahassee, Florida. Oh, my God. I'm currently somewhere near Macon, Georgia, almost there. I really hope that you're stopping for, like, the good Starbucks, a shaken espresso. You need something. Or maybe Celsius. I don't know. You know that's my drink of choice in the morning. Glenn sends along this photo and says, I get up every morning to watch Way Too Early, and Rosie's watching it right there with me. Oh, that's so perfect. We love to see it. Little puppy curled up on the couch.
There's nothing better.
There's nothing better, except for being on set for Way Too Early.
Oh, 100%.
100%. Thank you again, Congresswoman. I'll see you on Capitol Hill. And coming up next for us here, we're going to show you the bipartisan birthday party yesterday on Capitol Hill. Yeah, it's kind of worth it. Then coming up on Morning Joe, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries is a guest as the government shutdown drags on with no real end in sight. Also joining the show, Democratic Senator Jeanne Shaheen of New Hampshire. She's been a central player in the bipartisan back-channel talks on the shutdown. Morning Joe. is just moments away with all that.
How's that flu?
I got this. I don't got this.
You need Dayquil Intense Flu.
Power through your flu symptoms with Dayquil Intense Flu. You do got this. Dayquil Intense Flu. The daytime coughing, aching fever, power through your flu medicine.
Still taking yours?
Every day. Made to care for you every day. Nature Made, the #1 pharmacist recommended vitamin and supplement brand.
At Ancestry, we believe every question about the past is a spark. And when curiosity strikes about your family's story, we're here with answers only your ancestors can provide. The past is priceless. And right now, your whole story is on sale.
You've put up with your old shower for too long. It's outdated, unsafe, and it's time to replace it. But why struggle with a lengthy shower remodel when Jacuzzi can do it in just one day? And there's no need to break a sweat or your budget.
Right now, we're waiving all installation costs, plus offering 0 interest and 0 payments for up to 1 year.
So you can finally convert your old bath to a safer, easy entry shower, complete with a custom seat, grab bars, and slip-resistant floor installed in 1 day.
My overall experience with Jacuzzi has been wonderful. Everything was customized to the way I wanted it for the price that I wanted to pay.
I've had a great experience from start to finish.
Don't take matters into your own hands. Do it the smart way. Give Jacuzzi Bath Remodel a call.
There are only weeks remaining during our limited time offer. We're waiving all installation costs and offering no interest and no payments for up to 1 year. Go to jacuzzibathremodel.com or call 800-990-3564.
Hasn't getting insurance been on your to-do list for too long? Fortunately, the Zebra searches over 100 insurance companies for you free to find savings no one else can. Don't wait. Go to thezebra.com and get insurance today.
You've got a big day, and you need to smell fresh. That's why the all-new Unstoppables gives your clothes a 24-hour non-stop freshness. So no matter how long the day goes, you
can't stop this power, this walk, this pose, this strut, this look, this talk.
Unstoppables Fresh. Smell unstoppable.
MSNBC presents Season 2 of The Blueprint, hosted by Jen Psaki. Each week, she talks to leading Democrats who are helping to shape the future of the party. The Blueprint with Jen Psaki. For ad-free listening, subscribe to MSNBC Premium on Apple Podcasts.
This show began and continues being the place to have the hard conversations.
Welcome back. President Trump hosted a dinner last night for the donors of his new $250 million project at the White House. The Wall Street Journal reports more than 36 guests attended the event, held to, quote, establish the magnificent White House ballroom. Those in attendance included representatives from Meta, Microsoft, Google, Lockheed Martin, and other major corporations that have helped fund the new 90,000-square-foot ballroom. The dinner comes amid Trump's ongoing White House renovations, which include changes to the Rose Garden and Oval Office. And we'll leave you with this story. At least one GOP lawmaker was on Capitol Hill yesterday amid the ongoing government shutdown. Senators are, of course, in session. Republican Senator Jim Justice of West Virginia held a bipartisan birthday party for his 6-year-old English bulldog, Baby Dog. It was the pup's first birthday celebration on Capitol Hill since Justice began serving in the Senate. Baby Dog came in with a degree of celebrity and has only grown in stature since. At least 200 staffers from both sides of the aisle waited for a chance to celebrate the congressional canine. The line for the party became so long it wrapped around the 5th-floor hallway of the Hart Senate building before the furry guest of honor arrived. These hallways are really long, just to give you a sense, so that's a lot of people. Justice told NBC there was no way he or Baby Dog will take a paycheck during this shutdown and that he was leaving it to leadership to negotiate with Democrats over health care provisions. West Virginia has one of the highest marketplace premiums in the country, and rates are expected to sharply rise there without Affordable Care Act subsidies. We talk about the politics, how this will hit Republicans and Democrats alike. That is a prime example of it, but at least for a moment, some bipartisan celebration, though hopefully there can be bipartisan celebration for opening the government, hopefully soon. That was way too early, though, for this Thursday morning. Morning Joe starts right now. I'll see you there.
Are you at all concerned about the new January 6th committee finding you liable for that day? Why did you refuse the National Guard on January 6th?
Shut up. I did not refuse the National Guard. The president didn't send it. Why are you coming here with Republican talking points as if you're a serious journalist?
The American people want to know. We still have questions. Thank you.
That's actually Nancy Pelosi had the question.
The American people want to know what the American people know.
We want to know.
The American people know that what the American people want to know why so many people are too stupid to know the truth. That's what the American people want to know. Like they're fed disinformation by Lindell Network and by all these other right-wing networks.
Media.
Like this lie, like that it
Pillow
was
media.
January 6th. Nancy Pelosi refused to get national. No, that's a lie. But it's amazing, Mika, how these lies become truth. In part, they become truth because more Democrats don't do what Nancy Pelosi just did right there. The lies are everywhere. On the far right, and they're all around January 6th. The lies continue. They try to do investigations where there are lies. We're going to see the president talking about investigating the investigators again after they spent years with John Durham doing the same thing, spending millions and millions of taxpayers, again, pursuing lies. And yet, this is the American people. No, the American people know there are a group of people who intentionally want to believe lies on the MAGA right. It's like Jesus said. There are people who like could go into the light, but they choose the darkness instead. That's a spiritual side. We're talking politics here. Far less significant, of course, but people can know the truth, but they don't like the truth. So they keep spouting lies to Nancy Pelosi and other people about January 6th when they know the truth. They've even tried to erase that attempt to throw out a presidential election from their minds. And now they want to go on, and now they want to prosecute other people who they think, oh, Joe Biden sicked on Donald Trump. My God. We're going to show a clip, Mika, coming up. It's unbelievable. We're going to show a clip of the president inside the White House with his attorney general, FBI director, and other people standing by, just sitting there shuffling their feet while Donald Trump, president of the United States, says, this person should be arrested, this person should be arrested. Could you imagine what Lindell TV, could you imagine what the far right, what the MAGA right would have done if Joe Biden had held a press conference in the Oval Office saying, I want these 4 or 5 Republicans arrested? They would have gone crazy. And the question is, when are Republicans on the Senate Judiciary Committee going to say something? When are the Republicans on the House Judiciary Committee going to say something? When are the far right-wing podcasters going to say something, saying, this is really dangerous because they're going to come after us next? If this is the new normal in Washington, D.C., we might be next. No. This has to stop. And here is a president. I've said it before. I'll say it again. Here is a president that had a historic breakthrough in Middle East peace. And 2 days later, he's just completely stepping on every good headline by talking about continuing to pursue political enemies. It makes no political sense for him. It's bad for Republicans. It's bad for Democrats. It's bad for everybody. And yet it continues. Republicans need to speak up. And for God's sake, when is the United States Supreme Court going to stop all the ambiguity so Americans can stop being like thrown to the ground and beaten up and arrested, only to be released later on? By law enforcement officials, like going after illegal immigrants? Like when? The pace is quickening, and it's quickening every day. And if Republicans don't speak out, and if the Supreme Court doesn't do its damn job, then what we're looking at is the new normal. And that's a new normal that doesn't just hurt Democrats now. It hurts Republicans later. It hurts independents. It hurts all of us. It weakens the Constitution. It weakens political norms. It makes this democracy a much more dangerous place to live, a more dangerous place to speak your first. I mean, We're talking about now an attorney general that's calling people that are peacefully marching like terrorists, saying they're as dangerous as MS-13. We had a million-man march when I was in Congress. We had mostly Republicans come and march in Washington, D.C. There were no Democratic attorney generals calling us terrorists or calling for our arrests. None. Is that what Republicans on Capitol Hill and sitting in the Supreme Court, and yes, they are Republicans. Sorry, Chief Justice Roberts. We'll stop calling them Republicans when they stop acting like Republicans. But that's what they're doing. They're sitting back and they're letting this be the new normal, and it has to stop for everybody's sake. Damn, this is not hard. Put up guardrails, institutional guardrails that James Madison put up, that political leaders of both parties have put up over the past 240 years. And let's talk about Middle East peace again. Because, you know, that's kind of nice. When you have something that everybody can, like, talk about in a positive way, when a president's doing something to make the world a better, safer place. That's what we want. That's what every American wants. Okay, let's not, like, get peace abroad in the Middle East where it's never been and keep churning up a political fight at home. Who wants that? Maybe 33% of Americans want that, but most Americans want their government working. They want it open. They want Republicans and Democrats working together. And right now, Mika, just the opposite is happening.
Well, Joe, as you mentioned, speaking at an event in the Oval Office yesterday while flanked by the country's top law enforcement officials, President Trump once again called for the prosecutions of his perceived political foes.
Jack Smith, in my opinion, is a criminal. And I noticed his interviewer was, I think that was Weissman. And I hope they're going to look into Weissman, too. Weissman's a bad guy. And he had somebody in Lisa, who was his puppet, worked in the office really as the top person. And I think that she should be looked at very strongly. I hope they're looking at Shifty Schiff. I hope they're looking at all these people. And I'm allowed to find out. I'm allowed to, you know, I'm, in theory, the chief law enforcement officer. But I have a very good, talented group.
Nope. Okay, I will check on that. The president made those comments while standing alongside FBI Director Kash Patel, Attorney General Pam Bondi, and her top deputy, Todd Blanche. This call for action against a list of rivals follows recent indictments of two others that he singled out for prosecution, former FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James. As the New York Times puts it, yesterday's event was, quote, a diorama of the administration's lopsided power dynamic between a president bent on controlling federal law enforcement and appointees unwilling or unable to fight for the historic independence of their institutions. Trump, the Times goes on to write, has, quote, established a cadre of political surrogates and lockstep messengers willing to cast aside core departmental norms to serve his political agenda. And Willie will cap this off where we began with that question from Pillow Guy TV reporter asking why didn't Nancy Pelosi call in the National Guard? That was about a bunch of rioters who stormed, and they're pardoned. So as people are being called terrorists on the streets of Portland or whatever, the January 6th rioters, pardoned, out of jail.
Convicted criminals who went before a jury who's decided that they had committed those crimes.
Let's not forget.
Put them in jail, and then the President of the United States opened those jails upon his second inauguration. Let's bring in the co-host of our fourth hour, staff writer at The Atlantic, Jonathan Lemire, and Politics Bureau Chief and Senior Political Columnist at Politico, Jonathan Martin. Jonathan, let me start with you, just watching the President of the United States say what he said yesterday, again, with the FBI director and the Attorney General behind him. You get the sense he really does believe he is the chief law enforcement officer of the United States. He's not. That's the Attorney General standing behind him, but he believes he is the one calling the shots. And for them to stand behind him and nod along as he says these things, put that together with a Wall Street Journal report we're going to talk about this morning about the IRS, him installing someone at the top of the IRS who then can investigate Soros and other perceived enemies and boogeymen of the right over the years. He is forming a group of people around him who effectively don't recognize the limits of our government and the separation of the powers put in the Constitution, that he is directing everything from the top.
It's not just that there aren't guardrails anymore. He's being emboldened to do this. And there was a moment, we played that clip where he said, I hope someone looks into them. And he actually, literally, you could see his eyes shift to his right where Kash Patel was standing. I mean, it's so clear. Whether it's a direct order, like he gave in that Truth Social post that was meant to be a DM to Pam Bondi and ended up being sent wide for all to see, or this, where he creates an atmosphere where he makes it very clear who his political enemies are, and therefore he wants them to be investigated. We've never been here before. I know that's a phrase we say a lot, but this time it is really warranted, and it is really dangerous. This is the President of the United States just simply saying, I don't like person X, person Y, person Z, with no evidence, supplying no accusations of a crime. He's never said what Jack Smith allegedly did. A couple weeks ago, where he called for the arrest of the Illinois governor and Chicago mayor, there was no suggestion as to what law they broke, because there aren't any. And at minimum, and Willie, as you said, we'll get into that IRS reporting in a moment. At minimum, they harass someone, they make their life expensive and aggravating. When the federal government looks into you, that is an all-consuming, expensive proposition. But there could also be criminal charges attached, and who knows how that plays out. We have seen arraignments already of two of his foes, in Letitia James and James Comey. And I wrote this last week for The Atlantic. Retribution is here. He promised this during the campaign. White House aides would tell us in the first few months of this term, oh, we're too busy, we're not getting to that. Well, here we are. It is October of his first term in office. We have 3 odd years to go. The campaign has begun and clearly accelerating already.
And you can't find a Republican who will give a full-throated condemnation of what we're hearing here. Jonathan Martin, also, Joe mentioned this at the top, there are going to be these No Kings protests this weekend. Millions of people protesting this administration and all the things we've just described. You had the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, suggesting that those are anti-America protests, that they'll be populated with members of Antifa and pro-Hamas supporters, as he put it. Marxists will be among them. Speaker Johnson calling them the Hate America rallies. These are peaceful protests of this administration, and you have the Speaker of the House suggesting that they are effectively terrorists, some of them.
Yeah, I actually happened to be in New York, Willie, during the first No Kings protest. It was more of an NPR tote bag crowd than it was a sort of Antifa vibe. Those are the kind of folks showing up for those protests. But this is the project now that you see stretching from Johnson to the White House, which is portray the opposition as not, grandmas carrying NPR tote bags, but portray them as radicals who are bent on violence. And obviously that does not reflect the vast majority of the opposition. I'm reminded of something that Joe said on the show a couple of weeks ago, guys, which is the scandal is in the open now. You don't have to go to a garage in Roslyn to meet Deep Throat to get the scoop on what Trump is doing. He's literally doing every day, calling some kind of a press conference or signing an EO in the Oval Office, going off script, and yesterday, for example, demanding investigations into people whose names he can't even recall. He says Lisa without her last name, Wiseman but not his first name. But the folks standing behind him sure as heck know who that is. And they're now made to act. It's all in plain view. And I think that does reduce the shock value some, because it is out in the open every damn day.
All right.
Well, and also, Jonathan, you have Jonathan. You have in Pam Bondi, the New York Times, talking about how she has compared some of the people who are protesting the ICE raids, who, again, if you look at the actual ICE facility cam that the Oregon ABC affiliate has put up, there are literally grandmas and granddads sitting in lawn chairs with tote bags and holding signs that say, "Don't take the bait," which is basically saying, stay peaceful. She is comparing all those people, she said, to an organized crime. They're part of an organized crime syndicate. You have one of the top Republicans, Tom Emmers, saying that people that go to these No Kings rallies, again, a lot of NPR tote bag types going to these rallies, calling them terrorists. Said the word terrorists. Like trying to, are they trying to churn up political violence? Or what are they trying to do? Are they trying to get these people beaten up? Like, what are they trying to do? This is, this is coming from the top. It's coming from the president. It's what we just showed. It's coming from the speaker. And I would just say, you, like me, we've been around Washington a long time. Don't these Republicans that are staying silent on Capitol Hill understand what goes around comes around? These are horrible precedents that are being set, and their voices need to be heard. They need to speak out, because if it ever turns against them, they need to be on the record, and they need to encourage Democrats to fight back to protect them down the road.
And Joe, the one moment of any outcry that we've seen, at least in the last month, from the Senate GOP was precisely Ted Cruz saying just that about the FCC's intervention on Jimmy Kimmel, which was, this is not just about Kimmel, it's about us. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, when Democrats control the FCC, they're going to come back at us. So, I mean, if you don't do this from a principled standpoint, Joe, to your point, at least do it from a raw political standpoint, which is to say, if we okay this now, boy, it's going to be just as bad when the other guy's in charge. You would think they would have the self-interest, at least, to recognize that what comes around goes around, but we ain't seen it so far.
So here's the new report that Willie mentioned from the Wall Street Journal, which says the Trump administration is paving the way to make it easier for the IRS to criminally investigate left-leaning groups, including major Democratic donors. According to the Journal, quote, the undertaking aims to install allies of President Trump at the IRS Criminal Investigative Division to exert firmer control over the unit and to weaken the involvement of IRS lawyers. The paper adds, quote, the proposed changes could open the door to politically motivated probes. The effort is being driven by a top advisor to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who is also serving as acting IRS commissioner. Among the potential targets are billionaire donor George Soros and his affiliated groups. Joining us now, the president and CEO of Voto Latino, Maria Teresa Kumar. Good to have you on the show this morning. What do you make of this new reporting from the Journal?
So this is something, Mika, first of all, that a lot of the nonprofits have been tracking, because this is what is coming to fruition is what we were absolutely concerned with. Because if folks remember, when he was on the campaign trail, he promised that he was going to go after his political enemies. One of the first things that he did as an executive order was trying to basically say to the American people that if you were against him, he was going to go after you. And he has done that. Trump is someone that I have from the very beginning, the moment he descended those escalators in his first presidential campaign, calling the majority of Latinos criminals and rapists, I took him at his word. And so I took him at his word that this is what he was going to happen. But I think what folks need to remember is that civil society, an active civil society, whether we're talking about protests, whether we're talking about activating individuals to sign a petition or to hold our community, our electeds accountable, that is a fundamental core to democracy. I appreciate, Joe, what you've been saying all morning about that. This is something that's gone awry. This idea that they are trying to really, tamper down on dissent is not only dangerous for the American people, but there's no ability then for us to actually fight back when you see egregious abuse of power. And one of the things that we're very clear in the nonprofit sector is that as we prepare for the midterms, we have to make sure that the American people are very clear what the stakes are, because this is not just about policy, it's about the very core values of who we are as Americans. Can you protest peacefully? Are you going to be afraid at night because all of a sudden you have to walk around with a passport because all of a sudden someone says you may be undocumented? We don't know. What's happening right now in Chicago is abysmal. This idea that we're using Black Hawk helicopters and agents are rappelling from buildings to go into apartment buildings and basically figuring out who is black and who is brown and shuttling them off in the middle of the night in two different sets of vans while zip tying 5-year-olds. Joe, this is at a core value of who we are, and they're literally trying to use law enforcement against us so that they can go ahead, the administration can go ahead and pillage our coffers. And I think it's very clear that what they're doing is they're taking a sheet out of what Oregon did in Hungary. If anybody wants to know what's happening right now, I encourage you to read Ann Applebaum's latest book that really details every single thing that they've done in Hungary. This administration has read it, and they're applying it here.
Well, and Ann Applebaum's going to be here at 7 o'clock, and of course, you look at these pictures. You also look at everything that's going on. I've been a big defender of the Supreme Court for years. Big defender of federal judges for years, as people who have served to be the leveling wind, whether they are conservative members of Federalist societies, whether they are liberals, whether they are left wing. Federal courts have been the leveling wind. That's not happening right now. You have a Supreme Court that has pushed back down, refused to rule as unconstitutional federal law enforcement authorities using the color of somebody's skin as an opportunity to detain them, to stop them, to ask questions of them, possibly even to arrest them. And J-Mart, you have time and time again, you have American citizens, you have people who are here legally, who are getting beaten up, thrown to the ground, detained, have cuffs put on them, and then we hear, it happened to a WGN reporter, and then we hear a couple of hours later, oh, they were released. No charges. I guess they made a mistake after being beaten up, handcuffed, and now we're hearing, oh, you better carry your papers around. And then again, you have people calling the No Kings rally, NPR tote bag types, calling them terrorists. You have Pam Bondi comparing people who are protesting these immigration raids, comparing them to gang outfits, MS-13. Again, I want us to project forward. What happens when a pro-life rally? What happens when a pro-life march in 2029 is treated in a similar way? When pro-life organizations suddenly have the IRS chasing after them and they're being called terrorists, being called terrorists by the Attorney General. What happens when you have the president, whether it's an independent billionaire or whether it's a Democrat, calling pro-life organizations terrorists or comparing them to MS-13. That is something that we do not want. Just like we don't want these groups being attacked because they're practicing their First Amendment rights. But again, I ask, where is the chairman of the Judiciary Committee in the Senate, in the House? Where are Republican members in the Senate, in the House? Where are the courts? Where is the Supreme Court? Right now, they're missing in action. The Constitution, constitutional norms, the First Amendment. I mean, the separation between a president and the justice, all being shredded right now, and they're remaining silent, thinking that their allies are always going to be in the White House. They're not. They need to start worrying about themselves. Like you said, they need to be selfish. If they don't care about America, if they don't care about the First Amendment, be selfish. Care about yourself.
Yeah, the politics of this aren't going to be pretty because you're going to have a lot of Democratic-based voters who say, what do you mean you want to practice Lincoln's second inaugural with malice toward none? Screw that. We're going to get even. We're going to do to them what they did to us. And boy, if you're a Democratic president, Democratic member of Congress in 2029, it's going to be really hard to tell your base that you're not going to do that kind of stuff. Joe, you know this. So much of what happens in Washington with the governance of this country is not based upon law. It's not based upon the Constitution. It's based upon precedent, norms, traditions. There's a way that presidents act. There's a way that lawmakers lead. And what they do and what they don't do is crucial because it is how the next generation conducts themselves. And this is not how Carter, Ford, Reagan, Bush 41, Clinton conducted themselves. And it's a real break from that tradition that I fear is going to be followed by the next generation to come.
Okay. President and CEO of Voto Latino, Maria Teresa Kumar, thank you so much for coming on the show this morning. And still ahead on Morning Joe, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries joins us to discuss the ongoing government shutdown. Plus, MSNBC senior Capitol Hill correspondent Ali Vitale brings us the Republican perspective. She joins us on the heels of her exclusive sit-down interview with Senate Majority Leader John Thune. And you can take the Pope out of Chicago, but you can't take Chicago out of the Pope. We'll show you how Pope Leo responded to a little bit of trolling from a Cubs fan. You're watching Morning Joe. We'll be right back.
Save up to 50% on select styles of beautiful new carpet, hardwood, vinyl, and laminate from Empire Today. We'll beat any competitor's offer, guaranteed. Visit EmpireToday.com or call
800-588-2300 Empire. My moderate to severe Crohn's symptoms kept me out of the picture. Now I have Skyrizi.
I've got places to go and I'm feeling free. Controlling my Crohn's.
Straight ahead on CNN this morning, the redistricting fight we saw play out in Texas this summer could soon be even easier for Republicans, and that might be thanks to the nation's highest court. Plus, one of the most significant evacuations in Alaska's history after a devastating storm.
CNN News Central.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Billionaire Ken Griffin says that AI is not currently helping hedge funds beat the market. According to a Bloomberg report, Griffin told the J.P. Morgan Robinhood Investors Conference that generative AI is helping workers be more productive. But in his words, for uncovering alpha, it just falls short. The report says that Griffin told the gathering AI hasn't replaced in-depth research at his firm, Citadel. If you look at it, studies have shown that AI is better than the average investor because it's able to go through more material and it's able to make emotionless decisions, but probably not up to par with the experts in the industry.
And anyone can be wrong, no matter how smart you are. But it probably helps to be human at times to be able to gauge things. If it was that easy that you could use AI, and not everyone. You know, it's not a zero-sum game completely, but a lot of times on every trade, there's a winner and a loser. Right. So if everybody had AI...
It's pretty zero-sum.
It is kind of zero-sum. Yeah. So if you had AI and everyone had it, not everyone's going to be able...
Someone's going to have to outwit the other. And the question is, can your agent outwit the other agent?
You have better...
Right. Meantime, talking about outwitting agents, third quarter results out from BNY Mellon. Adjusted earnings coming in at $1.91, beating estimates of $1.77. The bank posted record revenue, about $5.1 billion. That's 9% up year over year. BNY Mellon saying it saw solid growth in client balances as well as robust trading. And you can take a look at that stock. It's up about 1%. And they're really trying to go through a transformation right now. They're doing all sorts of interesting things with tokenization. You know, they're really in the custody business, but it's one of the few banks, I think, in the system call it a bank, but it's almost, it's like in 5 different kind of component pieces of the financial ecosystem. And I can never figure out sort of what the right comp is because of all the different.
In terms of
they've been operating really well.
Yeah.
Right, it has been, but in terms of market cap and where you rank it, it's like not quite a big money center. It's not quite a regional. It's not like 76 billion market cap, which is a lot. Yeah. But what's the worst money? I mean, we're even Citigroup's almost 278 at this point. That's been a lot. Where's Wells Fargo? I think Wells has been doing much better too. 272. Yeah. About that, and then you got
Morgan.
Well, that's just juggernaut.
Robin
Secretary of Defense, who had a rough go of it in his confirmation hearings, who had rough media coverage because of his role in the Signalgate scandal, and he is afraid of being embarrassed in front of the President of the United States. He is someone who still is thought of well by the President, but very few others in the White House, I am told, Joe, and he's being very protective of his image and reputation. But this is a dangerous escalation, trying to curtail press freedoms. The President has mused about doing something similar at the White House, perhaps Capitol Hill will be next. It is deeply worrisome and another example of this administration trying to deliver an assault against the freedom of the press, freedom of speech.
Jay Mort. It's deeply worrisome, and it's incredibly stupid. I was on a plane one time with Alan Simpson, and he was like, "Hey, boy, you new here?" Wow. And I go, "Yes, sir, I am. You have any advice?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "When somebody in the media calls you, son, even if they're sons of bitches, you call them back that day." You know? And I took it to heart. When I got on the House floor, I wouldn't go sit with Republicans because they thought like me. I'd go sit first on the Democratic side to see if there were, any bridges to build there. And then I'd go out and I sat in the speaker's lobby, man. I sat in the middle of reporters and stayed there like in between votes. If the votes were going on for hours, I would sit in the speaker's lobby. They thought I was all a right-wing nut, right? I wanted them to know me. I wanted to know them. Yeah. And a remarkable thing happened.
Here you are.
I got really good press. And
you are the press.
When Pete, yeah, and now I am the press, right? So when Pete Hegseth says, "I don't like," I mean, you can tell he's a rookie. I don't like what they're writing about me. Instead of being like Alan Simpson and saying, always call them back, talk to them, even if you don't like them, even if they're too tough, even if they're unfair, stay engaged with them.
Totally.
It makes all the difference in the world. I have told that to presidents, to vice presidents. I've through over 30 years when people are seem like they're stuck in their office. Yeah. I'm like, call in the press, sit down, talk to the people, and start with the people you think are treating you the most unfairly. Sit down and don't try to berate them. Just talk to them. Tell them what you're trying to do. Let them see around the corners. It makes such a huge difference. And so Pete Hegseth now is further isolating himself. So yes, if I could set my hair on fire if I wanted to, actually at the end of the day, and I mean this, and you know this, the person hurt the most by this is, fill in the blank, Pete Hegseth.
Of course. And by the way, it contradicts Trump's whole worldview, too.
Exactly.
Trump is of, by, and for the press, has been his entire public life. He wants press coverage every day. Hegseth isn't getting the hint from Trump. But, Joe, the problem, and by the way, I see it in both parties today. A new generation of people coming in view the press as a risk to be avoided rather than an opportunity to be seized. And that's a fundamental mistake. You've got to project confidence, know who you are, and embrace having the media. I think about
Jonathan, I want to follow up on that. Two things. First of all, Donald Trump runs in 2015 and 16. He comes on our show a lot. Why do you have Donald Trump on the show? I said, because we invite everybody on the show. And so he walks through that door. Lindsey Graham, would call a couple of times as well. We continued that, in future campaigns. We had a couple of people call us once in a while. But you go back in the 2024 campaign, and I just want you to underline this point again, that the press is not something that you're scared of, something you got to either, if you can't deal with it, don't run for office.
Right.
Kamala Harris's hours being interviewed versus Donald Trump's hours being interviewed over the course of the campaign, not even a close call. And there were times where you would listen to Donald Trump talking to somebody, didn't even know what he was saying, but guess what? He was there.
Part
he
of the
showed
wallpaper,
up.
man. Part
he
of the
was
wallpaper.
talking to the audience, whether it was Joe Rogan or somebody else. That's the key. And these politicians, now one in the Pentagon, doesn't understand it.
Well, especially in an era of this, the phone, you got to be everywhere. You can't discriminate who you're doing, who you're not doing, pick your spots, because guess what? You got to flood the zone because that's where people are nowadays. And I'm glad that you mentioned Lindsey Graham, Joe, because every Republican out there should take him as a model. Your classmate in 1994. Here is somebody who's always looked at the press as an opportunity. He's not running in the Senate hallways from the press like some of his colleagues in the Senate when they get a hard question. He's going to embrace the questions, talk, constantly work it. Is he going to drive folks crazy sometimes? Absolutely. But he's going to be available for comment, or as Ed Koch once said, unavoidable for comment. But that's part of the job. And if you don't want to do that, engage with the press, then why are you running for Congress in the first place? So that you can
exactly.
You go on Twitter and sort of do a 30-second video with no scrutiny, no accountability. That's not how this works.
All right.
You know how, Mickey, you know who else seems to get it?
Who?
Mom Dami, who was on Fox News yesterday. Looked right to the camera, talked to the president, which I guarantee you the president respected. And then you had Andrew Cuomo, who during the primary, couldn't even find the guy, while Mom Dami was everywhere. It matters. So you look at the Pentagon and you're actually pushing out all of these reporters. It's the worst thing to do. The worst thing to do, unless you are so incompetent and inept, you don't want people to catch you.
Senior political columnist at Politico, Jonathan Martin, thank you very much for coming on this morning. We appreciate it. And coming up on Morning Joe.
I honestly think, and I've said this and I've had this conversation with Democrats in the Senate, that the solution to this isn't going to come through their leadership. It's going to come through their rank and file. And I think it's going to be a number of Democrats who are willing to, figure out a way to be comfortable.
Not reflect that.
All right, let me ask these guys about this then, because right now in California, you have Gavin Newsom and others, even Obama weighed in on saying, look, we got to do this redistricting thing because the Republicans are doing redistricting thing. And Republicans basically are like, yes, like they're going around state to state and doing it. So to Ron's point, if you're a voter and you're watching the parties, you see people who are like, if we just manipulate the maps, we can get what we want.
Ultimately, all of this is a partisan game. And I think what we see is if this goes through, this means Democrats can do a whole lot more partisan gerrymandering throughout the country, but not in the South. And we'll see African-American representation
But I
in the
think
South
what we're saying is
wiped out.
everyone will be able to do more.
This is part of the race to the bottom. Absolutely. This is a race to the bottom, regardless of what state we talk about. As long as you're pushing your partisan agenda, you have approval from your base.
I'm sort of intrigued because for the longest time, it was
Hi, Hazel. Hazel.
Troops in our cities, masked federal agents all over the place, political prosecution.
This was quite the late night disaster for Donald Trump at the White House. He gathered all of his right-wing billionaire oligarch friends, and he started saying, I need $20 million from you and you and you for the Golden Ballroom. We need this 90,000 square foot ballroom to be built while the government is in shutdown mode. Trump saying, this is my priority. Get this ballroom up. It's a bizarre speech he gave at the White House. Then he started holding up this thing which he was saying, look at this triumphant arch. We need to build this in the Washington Mall. This is what we need as well. This is what I'm focused on. This was one of the most deranged speeches I've seen. Let me show you what went down. This is what Donald Trump said about the ballroom. Give me 25 million. Who's going to give me 25 million? And all these rich people there were just like laughing with Donald Trump in the faces of the American people who were getting their health care ripped away by this Trump regime. Here, play this clip.
And we'll be able to have state dinners, the kind we would literally not even have state dinners because it's not set up. But for all those years, they wanted it, and now they're going to get it. And because of you, they're going to get it. And me too. We're all in this together. And I mean, I have so many friends, and so many of you have been really, really generous. I mean, a couple of you are sitting here saying, sir, would $25 million be appropriate? I said, I'll take it. You know, it doesn't take too many 25s to get it done. But a lot of you have been really fantastic. Ike, thank you very much. You were great. You were great, Ike.
Then Donald Trump starts bragging about all of the gold in the Oval Office and how it looks so magnificent. He goes, no one's ever seen the Oval with such gold before. Here, play this clip.
All lit up and gorgeous and perfect, and we take good care of it too. Wasn't taken good care of. The Oval Office is now at a level that it's never seen before. We take really great care of it. They weren't taking good care of it for 4 years, I'll tell you that.
Not just thinking as Americans are living paycheck to paycheck and being psychologically tortured by that fact as Americans see that their healthcare premiums are about to double, triple, or quadruple, which could cause medical bankruptcy and, of course, cause them to lose their healthcare as Americans can't afford groceries, as inflation is surging, as the government is shut down and the Trump regime is laying people off left and right, and they are taking away funds from critical projects, manufacturing recession, construction recession right now, a recession in like 22 states. This is what he's doing. Trump then says, so we will begin the historic ballroom. Here, play this clip.
So we'll begin the really historic effort to add we'll call presidential ballroom that'll expand the space for tens of thousands of people will be able to come during the course of a year if you add it all up and have the kind of space that you need. It's very exciting. To me, it's exciting as a person in real estate because you'll never get a location like this again.
Then Donald Trump goes into the story about the Lincoln bedroom, and he seems to be suggesting that he's been ripping apart rooms in the White House, that he doesn't like the decor. Listen to what he's saying here. Here, play this clip.
Still not probably really used to it. It's just a special place. What can I say? So we have to take care of it. And we have little things like at the Lincoln bedroom, the bathroom was done by the Truman family and, long time ago. And it's done in a green tile, and it's done as in a style that was not exactly Abe Lincoln. It's a style that's not good. So it's actually Art Deco, and Art Deco doesn't go with, 1850 and civil wars and all of the problem. But what does do is statuary marble. So I ripped it apart and we built the bathroom. It's absolutely gorgeous and totally in keeping with that time, because the Lincoln bedroom is so incredible for those of you that have seen it. We have so many different downstairs. We have the palm room, and they had 1-by-1 tiles that were put there probably 20 years ago by somebody, and they were broken and bad. It's embarrassing. And I took it out and we did a magnificent book-matched statuary marble floor. We fixed the room and we put up the right the proper lighting and chandeliers. And it looks incredible. People walk up, they can't believe how beautiful it is. And so we like to fix it up. And it's a little bit of my heritage, fix up and clean up and make it nice. And we're doing that with the White House. So,
and again, while Trump is giving the speech, the MAGA Republicans in the House of Representatives are off on vacation. They're not working. Donald Trump has ordered the Republicans, do not talk to Democrats, yet alone negotiate with Democrats. Why? Because Trump's been bragging about the shutdown. He goes, I took $20 billion away from New York. Take that, Chuck Schumer. Take that, Democrats. I am hurting you. Meanwhile, the regime is giving $40 billion to Argentina. We thought it was 20, but we learned earlier today it would be $40 billion, allowing some of their rich friends to be part of that $20 billion second tranche. More from Donald Trump right here. He talks about this ballroom is going to be the best anywhere in the world, that this is what the American people are demanding, a beautiful gold ballroom paid for by the oligarchs. Here, play this clip.
And so we're going to have a phenomenal ballroom. It's going to be one of the best anywhere in the world. There won't be anything like it, actually. And it's 4 sides of glass, or glass, beautiful glass, but totally appropriate in color and in window shape and everything else with the White House, moldings. So it's going to be very much in keeping with the White House. A new thing is you build a super modern building next to an old-fashioned building. And I think that's good, but I don't have the courage to do that with the White House. It's good for a lot of places. It's not good. It's not good for here. So everything's very much in keeping, and we'll be able to have state dinners, the kind we would literally not even have state dinners because it's not set up. But for all those years, they wanted it, and now they're going to get it. And because of you, they're going to get it. And me too. We're all in this together. And I mean, I have so many friends, and so many of you have been really, really generous. And
Donald Trump makes this weird statement about the press. Here, play this clip.
What you've done is very important, and we'll have a little dinner, and we'll ask the press to now go home to your wives, family, say hello to them. If I don't like you, don't even bother.
And then he goes on this weird rant about Lady Liberty, and then he holds up this triumphant arch. Now, the triumphant arch was something that Hitler really wanted to build as kind of one of the centerpieces of Germania. It was never built, but there are all these photos of Hitler wanting this triumphant arch and being obsessed about it over and over again. Why the hell do we have this vile human being in the Oval Office holding triumphant arches and golden ballrooms while Americans are suffering right now? It is so despicable. Here's what he says. Play this clip.
This is just a model of what it would look like in either of the three, any of the 3 sizes, which is right here. I don't know if you can see it. So that's Lady Liberty. Lady, did you ever hear of Lady Liberty? On top. But, so the sizes would be very different. Now here's Lincoln, and this is sort of facing this way. And so, this is a direct line. They did this, they didn't do that. So this would be, small, medium, and large. Medium and large. And whichever one would look good. I happen to think the large looks much better. Why are you shocked to hear that? So we're going to,
Then he goes on and does these jokes about the unlawful war crimes that he's committing off the coast of Venezuela and off the coast of Colombia as the Trump regime is destroying fishing boats, blowing them up, killing people inside. These are war crimes that are taking place. Zero transparency as well, but he brags about it. He goes, I guess you don't want a fishing boat in Venezuela. Here, play this clip.
This is Venezuela, but other countries also, not only Venezuela. And speaking of Venezuela, we have a lot of drugs. We had a lot of drugs coming in by water. That stopped. In fact, nobody wants to go fishing in. Nobody wants to go anywhere, anything near the water. They might have a beautiful boat, and they might as well get rid of their boat because they are very nervous about going on the water. It's been amazing. So now we were having literal subway train of people and drugs. A lot of them coming from Venezuela, a lot of them come from Mexico and Colombia too, in all fairness, but We wanted to knock out one track, and I can tell you we cannot find anybody anymore. We're looking down, they're looking down. There's not a boat on the entire ocean that we can see outside of the ocean liners, and even they're a little bit concerned about it. But it shows you
Then he goes on this weird rant about how in 1902 they were going to put a statue of Robert E. Lee up right by the Arlington Memorial Bridge. And then Trump goes, I would be totally good with having Robert E. Lee monuments up right there. That's what you want? I mean, literal traitors. Here, play this clip.
And that's where you're really here because you contributed to this incredible building that people have wanted for so many years. And we show another building. It's an arc. It's the arc. So that circle, that's Arlington Memorial Bridge, as you know, it's sort of the most important one, a very important structure. And at the end of it, you have a circle that was built 150 years ago. Nobody knows really when. And in fact, they put a couple of columns on each side. So you have two columns on one side, two columns on the other. But you have in the middle just a circle. And everyone that passes it said, something was supposed to be built there. That's true. But a thing called the Civil War interfered. That's a good reason. I would say that would be a good reason, right? The great Ike Perlmutter. The Civil War, if you said you're having a war, I think you have a good reason not to build. Again, you know, they were building the Washington Monument, then they stopped, and you could see where they stopped because the stone is a little different color when you get up to the middle. But anyway, they stopped here. And then they were, in 1902, they were going to put a statue of Robert E. Lee up. Would have been okay with me. A lot of people wouldn't have liked it. Would have been okay with me. Would have been okay with a lot of the people, but they didn't do that.
I want to remind you as well. This is why I need to play these clips back to back. You had Donald Trump earlier in the day talking about taking away $20 billion from New York. I mean, these are critical dollars for infrastructure projects for like the biggest city in the world, or one of the most important cities, New York City. You're screwing the World Trade Center. Like, this is what you're doing. So watch this one first. Then I want to show you what he's doing with Argentina. Play this clip.
Got a lot of people paid, actually. We got the people that we want paid, okay? And we want the FBI paid, we want the military paid. We got the people that we want paid. And I'll tell you, the Democrats, they don't talk about this. You know, we're getting rid of programs that we didn't like, but that were negotiated in, but we didn't like. We're terminating those programs, and they're going to be terminated on a permanent basis. And it's thousands of people, and it's billions of dollars. We're getting rid of a lot of things that we never wanted because of the fact that they made this stupid move. And they don't want to talk about it. You know, they have their day coming up. I hear very few people are going to be there, by the way.
Say goodbye to your reading glasses, computer glasses, and even your sunglasses. Introducing the last pair of glasses you'll ever need.
Well, it's the cover-up, of course, that gets you, not often the original crime. And the issue here is that Donald Trump's name is in those files. We know it's in the files. There's no question about that. Whether or not he committed any crimes, we don't know that because we don't have the files. So why is the speaker working so hard to make sure the files aren't released? Why hasn't the Trump Justice Department, which has absolute freedom here to release these files, released them? Why is the House committee calling in witnesses that have no probative value from their testimony, like former Attorney General Bill Barr? And it's because they need to keep these files out of the public eye. Well, I'm going to do this and then I'll do that. That has just extended unnecessarily this horrible war of aggression by Russia. And whether or not Tomahawk missiles are turned over to the Ukrainians, and they are very lethal and precise weapons, that's not going to stop Putin. After all, Putin has now got a deal. I don't think that's it.
A White House official said, David, that
there are three words that make the prosecution against Letitia James nearly impossible. In fact, these three words
to Trump, and you said, it's one I think as a party we've got to turn that page and start appealing to different constituencies and with a message that is winsome and hopeful. What would you say now to 2023 you?
Well, I'm still for winsome and hopeful.
Is that what we have right now in the Republican Party?
Well, look, I mean, I think the Republican Party, the Republican Party won a big election. We have the House, the Senate, and the White House for only the 4th time in 100 years. So the American people saw something that they liked. And my job is to be the best partner I can in trying to achieve an agenda that I think the American people voted for. So, yeah, I go about my job in a different way than some elected officials and some people who, run for political office. And I think I'm an aspirational type politician, and I like to think that politics ought to be about appealing to people's hopes and not preying on their fears. And I try to model that. But my job is to do the best job I can of, finding ways to get things done, getting results, getting solutions for the American people. And that means you get to work with people who have all different political persuasions and ways of doing their jobs that might be different than mine.
And Ellie joins us now. She is, of course, the host of Way Too Early. John, I will say, just so viewers know, a friend for decades. John is firmly holding on to winsome and hopeful. Ellie, winsome and hopeful. Also is suggesting, and you picked up on this, and suggesting that Republicans may, regardless of how the shutdown turns out, may want to have those negotiations on health care rates regardless. Talk about that and what you learned from the majority leader.
I thought that was actually perhaps the most tangible sign that maybe things are changing. I mean, you know this from being on the Hill. Oftentimes we're aware of bipartisan discussions or the potential for a deal behind the scenes. But this was the first time that we've heard from leadership speaking in really clear substantive terms about what could be on the table. Thune effectively saying the ball is now in Democrats' courts because I've told them privately that I'm willing to talk about reforming these ACA subsidies programs. And if we can get together on reforms, offering them some kind of a vote on it. What he said there that I think is important that speaks to the larger political dynamics around this is that, yes, maybe there is some Republican appetite in the Senate, but he doesn't necessarily think it's enough to reach that 60-vote threshold. Nevertheless, he said, I'm offering you the vote that you say you want if you reopen the government. So interesting to see the way that Democrats ultimately respond to that. I think the other thing that was interesting is what lends to the trust deficit, which is a huge part of why this shutdown is still ongoing, is the fact that the administration has come in over the top multiple times with rescissions or pocket rescissions, leaving Democrats in a position of saying, well, if we're negotiating for things to put in the bill and the White House is just going to come make an end run and pull them out, what's the point? And you can see there that Thune is at least uncomfortable, if unwilling to say that they should stop outright. He's clearly uncomfortable with them going outside of what he calls the normal appropriations process. And so that was kind of a larger theme that I saw there, Joe, was the fact that he was willing to try to show the ways that he is dissenting from the administration, the ways that he's different from them. And I think in this Washington, that's always interesting.
Well, there are two interesting points I thought that he made. First of all, he said if we do this, if we made a negotiation, if we went through the Finance Committee, then the president would not be able to enact rescissions there. Secondly, I thought it was very interesting. He talked about doing something that Congress hasn't done for a very long time and having, and I know this is in the weeds, but it's actually important, regular order where you actually go through committees, the subcommittees to committees. They pass the bill. It gets on the Senate floor. It gets on the House floor. You send it to the president. He signs it. It becomes law. As you know, that hasn't happened for a very long time. You usually get 3 or 4 leaders on one side, 3 or 4 leaders on the other side, and then they throw the bill at the members and say, here it is. It does seem, as he said, if you go through a regular process, which Congress hasn't done for a long time, if you get buy-in through this appropriations process that's done the correct way, regular order, then there's more buy-in, and it's far more likely that there will not be rescissions.
I think that's right. And you and I are Congress nerds, but you're right to say that this is important because I think the larger commentary on doing appropriations through regular order is more a commentary on the way that Congress hasn't worked for a while now. And in large part, it's because of the tribalism and the partisanship and the trust deficits. And I think that when we see Thune come here on MSNBC and say, I'm actually behind the scenes offering Democrats a vote on what they say they want, I'm interested to hear the way that that lands on the Hill today, because again, those have been private conversations that are now coming into public focus. And I'm interested to hear if that moves any Senate Democrats, and more importantly, if that's something that's palatable in the House, because I think what's clear in my conversations with Senate Democrats and Republicans is they know that this is a Senate story right now. Thune says that's where the game is. He's right. But it is going to go back to the House at some point, and the dynamics there are so much more different, and that's where the role of the president really comes into play. Will Trump back this? Of course, I don't think Thune would be going about this without the backing in some way of the president, but that's an interesting dynamic for us to watch as well.
All right, Ali Vitale, thank you so much for bringing us that
Joe.
exclusive interview. We greatly appreciate it. And Ali will be with us later this hour when we talk to House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. You know, Jonathan Lemire, John Thune brought up something else that's fascinating as well. And that is, and you do hear it from Republicans a good bit, that when you look at how much these premiums are going up for health insurance, the actual tax credit that they're fighting over is a smaller part of that than the actual insurance rates that insurance companies are charging. And this becomes a huge issue because we've been talking about for some time how much healthcare costs are exploding. A lot of these benefits were put in post-COVID to help people through COVID. Now Democrats want to extend that as we move forward. But insurance companies are also, again, they're jacking up the rates so high that it's putting even Republicans like Marjorie Taylor Greene and other Republicans in a position where, you know, they wouldn't naturally want to extend subsidies that were put in place during COVID for Obamacare. But they may not have a choice because their constituents are getting pounded so hard by the insurance companies.
Yeah, Marjorie Taylor Greene doing some constituent services there, making clear that people in her district, District Joe, we know that you know well, are really struggling with these costs. And she even mentioned her own adult children doing the same. It would face a real jump in expenses were this to expire. So, and that's reflective of, you know, even setting aside the current debate in Washington, we're in a healthcare cost crisis in this country. And, you know, there has much been written about how the ACA has worked. It has definitely helped. And to the point where actually it's so many red states, Republican voters tend to rely on them even in more disproportionately than when we think of as Democrats and blue states. So it is, Mika, something that it's not going away. This is obviously the centerpiece of this current debate here on Capitol Hill with this shutdown. But I can tell you, White House officials I spoke to in the last week or so, getting more and more nervous about the politics of this, that they feel like the health care issue, and we saw Senator Thune try to grab it back there a little bit today, but they feel like this is breaking away from them, and they're nervous. The president himself nervous that the Republicans could come out on the losing end again.
All right, and now we turn to FBI Director Kash Patel and Attorney General Pam Bondi joining President Trump in the Oval Office yesterday when he once again called for the prosecutions of his perceived political enemies.
Jack Smith, in my opinion, is a criminal. And I noticed his interviewer was, I think that was Weissman. And I hope they're going to look into Weissman, too. Weissman's a bad guy. And he had somebody in Lisa, who was his puppet, worked in the office really as the top person. And I think that she should be looked at very strongly. I hope they're looking at Shifty Schiff. I hope they're looking at all these people. And I'm allowed to find out. I'm allowed to, I'm, in theory, the chief law enforcement officer. But I have a very good, talented group.
I'm not sure that's exactly right. The comments come after the indictments of two others he singled out for prosecution, former FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James. Meanwhile, the Trump administration is paving the way to make it easier for the IRS to criminally investigate left-leaning groups, including major Democratic donors. That's according to new reporting from the Wall Street Journal. The paper reports, quote, the undertaking aims to install allies of President Trump at the IRS Criminal Investigative Division to exert firmer control over the unit and weaken the involvement of IRS lawyers, adding, quote, the proposed changes could open the door to politically motivated probes. The effort is being driven by a top advisor to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who is also serving as acting IRS commissioner.
Let's bring into the conversation MSNBC national affairs analyst, partner and chief political columnist at Puck, John Heilman, and staff writer at The Atlantic, Ann Applebaum. Good morning to you both. And what we saw yesterday there from the White House, from the President of the United States, kind of encapsulates everything you've been talking about and writing about for many years now in your books and in your latest piece about the state of democracy in America. So with your finely tuned ear, what did you hear from the President yesterday?
What I heard is something called rule by law instead of rule of law. In countries that aren't democracies, the law is whatever the person in power says it is. So there's a famous phrase by one of Stalin's prosecutors, you know, find me the man and I'll give you the statute. In other words, find me the person and I'll tell you how to arrest them and what to accuse them of. Using the state, using the IRS, using other kind of regulatory organs to investigate your enemies, all of that is not rule of law. So rule of law, which is what the United States was founded on and what we've had for 250 years, means that the law is separate from politics. So the law is the Constitution. The law is what the courts have said. The law is not what people in power at the moment say it is.
Let's read a little bit from your latest piece in The Atlantic. It's titled "The Beacon of Democracy Goes Dark." In it, Ann writes, we have a president who attacks judges and journalists, who bullies CEOs into handing over stock in their companies and university presidents into paying meritless fines, who sends military forces into American cities, who's building a new form of interior police, and who encourages the deepening divide between red and blue America. All of these changes are part of a larger shift, a revolutionary transformation in the way Americans present themselves to the world and the way they are therefore perceived by others. The most ubiquitous form of American culture nowadays is not jazz programming going out on shortwave radio across Eurasia, but the social media platforms that pump conspiracy theories, extremism, advertising, pornography, and spam into every corner of the globe. So it's not just the message, and it's the way it's being distributed today, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, people used to associate the United States with big ideas, with freedom, with democracy, with rights, with the rule of law, as we were just saying. And increasingly what we're seen as is the nation that produces manipulation, the algorithms that manipulate you and tell you what to see. That we stand for, leaders who break the law rather than follow the law. That we aren't any longer seen as the leader of a broad democratic alliance, with all the many flaws that we've always had and all the hypocrisy that was sometimes inherent in our positions. That was our formal role. That's how we were seen and interpreted by other people. And that's changed pretty dramatically, and it will have all kinds of effects over time, not just in security, but in economics and so on.
So John Heilman, Ann's piece, incredibly important. It was paired with one by David Brooks, also the Atlantic, saying, look, time is running out. Americans need to act now. There needs to be some sort of movement now to reclaim our ideals, to reclaim what we stand for before it's lost, potentially, he warns, for generations. So on that idea, we know there are some significant protests planned for this weekend, but this is an administration that is cracking down on dissent. We heard the president right there suggesting he wants to go after his political foes, and we've heard even from the Speaker of the House, others in Congress suggesting that these No Kings rallies that are planned for this weekend, which were extremely peaceful earlier this year, that they're the work of American-hating, Hamas-loving terrorists.
Yeah, Jonathan, it's an astonishing, staggering, and profoundly troubling sequence of events, it's hard to get your arms around the size and scale of this problem. You know, and I say this not in a tongue-in-cheek way. You know, when you have David Brooks, who has for a long time been, you know, a sensible, what's seen as a kind of a sensible centrist, moderate kind of, and by far from someone who is considered a left-wing agitator, saying that that America, we are at the point now where a serious national mass movement is necessary if we're going to preserve what's left, what's still standing of America's democratic framework and traditions. You know that you have crossed some Rubicon somewhere. And I don't disagree with David. I think, you know, the No Kings rallies this weekend, we're going to see millions of people are going to be out. We've seen this, the protest movements have been growing. At the same time, we're seeing, you know, this militarization, increasing militarization of law enforcement and troops in America's streets. There's no doubt that we are headed towards clashes of some kind, and not far off from now. I think the Trump administration wants some of those clashes, in the spirit you were discussing of crackdowns. They are setting a stage for by characterizing these peaceful protests, what have been peaceful protests so far throughout Trump 2.0, that have not been in any way violent or in any meaningful way violent. I don't want to dismiss some stray act of violence at some protest somewhere, but already we've seen millions of people who have marched, and these are not the marches of insurrectionists. These are marches of people doing protesting in the grand and storied tradition of American democratic dissent throughout our lives, but they're being portrayed in advance as being what you just quoted Mike Johnson and others saying, and we've seen again this kind of the flexing of military muscle and force. We are headed towards a conflict, a clash in the streets. One side really wants it, and the fact that it's the administration, which has if not the monopoly, has a very strong hold on lethal force and force itself, is a profoundly disconcerting and worrying situation. But it may be necessary to have some kind of clash if we're going to get to what David Brooks is talking about, what we need to hold on here.
We need a political clash, not a military clash, not a violent clash. We've seen with the tragedies, the political killings, even over the past month, and the political killing of Charlie Kirk, that we need to make sure that violent rhetoric is tamped down on all sides. And again, we're not going to do both sidesism here, because the Cato Institute and CSIS and every other organization that has studied political violence in America says the majority of that violence usually comes from far right-wing groups. But it doesn't matter what groups it comes from. We need to work together peacefully. We need to move forward peacefully, and it's not helpful when the Speaker of the House of Representatives and his leaders like Tom Emmers call those peacefully protesting terrorists. Think about that. Calls them terrorists. Or when the Attorney General compares people protesting against these ICE immigration raids, where a lot of people are improperly being beaten up, shoved to the ground, having handcuffs put on them, led away only to be released later, including a WGN reporter. It's not helpful at all when those people are being compared to MS-13 by the Attorney General. So, yes, we do need to come together as a country, and people in Washington, D.C., people in the administration, people on podcasts, on TV, need to do their best to constantly be reminding Americans that we have a lot more in common than what separates us. Of course, you get out into America, you hear that. But in Washington, D.C., or on a podcast, you do not hear that in the political bubble. you certainly didn't hear it in the White House yesterday, which again, and I'm just so curious. You go back to your, I think it was 2017 book, Twilight of Democracy. You go back to your book where you're saying, look at what Orban is doing. This is where the Trump administration's trying to go. As I was watching yesterday, I was curious, has Orban himself ever just stood in his presidential office with his top prosecutors behind him and called for his political opponents to be arrested the way President Trump did yesterday?
So I'm not such a close follower of events in Hungary that I can tell you every single thing that Viktor Orban has done since he's been prime minister over the last decade. But I doubt it. Actually, the way he took over the Hungarian government, the way he very slowly dismantled Hungarian democracy was quite subtle. You know, it was one institution at a time. It was without...
Well, that's the point.
Yeah, without, you know, the speed that we've seen here and the use of ICE and the use of violence is actually quite different from what we've seen in other places, and resembles much more something like, you know, almost like a military, almost like an occupation. You know, it's been a very rapid, very fast attempt to change the system. And I assume the reason that's happening is they're trying to do it before we get to the midterms. They're trying to change the political climate and alter the level playing field before people vote. And Dan, Governor Pritzker told me one of the things he is concerned about is the midterms, especially with what's happening in Chicago and Illinois with ICE and also the National Guard threats. Yeah, no, I mean, I think there's about to be more written about the midterms. I heard what Governor Pritzker said. What he's particularly worried about is that the idea of having troops in the street is to get people used to troops being there, and that will be somehow used to manipulate the elections or make people afraid to vote, something like that. And there are other things happening that I think, you know, I know one of my colleagues is writing about it now. There have been the federal government demanding to see voter rolls, which is unprecedented. There have been, you know, at the state level, a lot of, we know about the gerrymandering, attempting to gerrymander Texas and other states, ordered from the federal government, which I think is also unprecedented. At the state level, there are different laws that have been passed designed to make it harder for some people to vote. So there's going to be a whole package of things that will be done, and it's really important for Americans to keep a close eye on this. Whatever state you live in, wherever you are, make sure that your legislators know that you want the right to vote and you want the right to be heard, because that is really a very fundamental piece of our system. We have the right to change our leaders.
Staff writer for The Atlantic, Anne Applebaum, thank you as always. Her latest piece, entitled "The Beacon of Democracy Goes Dark," is online right now. And John Howman, thank you as well. And still ahead on Morning Joe, we'll dive into the state of the U.S. economy, which Morning Joe economist Steve Ratner says seems to be only working well for certain Americans. He'll be at the Southwest Wall with his charts. Plus, Democrats are trying to ramp up the pressure on Speaker Johnson to swear in Representative-elect Adelita Grijalva of Arizona, who won her election more than 3 weeks ago. So why isn't she sworn in? She'll be our guest straight ahead on Morning Joe. We'll be right back.
I've been baking my entire life, so I love being in the kitchen. And I'm constantly furrowing my brows. So when some of my friends mentioned they got treated with Botox Cosmetic and were happy with the results, I booked my first consultation. Botox Cosmetic, it's been FDA approved for over 20 years. And it's the most studied product of its kind. I'm happy with my results. They're very natural looking.
Botox Cosmetic effects may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms.
Alert your doctor right away as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness may be a sign of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions are at highest risk. Don't receive Botox Cosmetic if you have skin infection. Side effects may include allergic reactions, injection site pain, headache, eyebrow, eyelid drooping, or swelling. Tell your doctor your medical history, muscle or nerve conditions, and medications including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects.
I'm the one and only Taylor, and I got treated with the one and only Botox Cosmetic.
Find a licensed Botox Cosmetic specialist at BotoxCosmetic.com.
Amazon offers hourly employees health care on day one for the whole family.
Mom, come quick!
Go, 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 go! Yeah!
Should I get Dad a Band-Aid?
At Amazon, hourly employees earn an average of over $23 an hour.
All right, what are we thinking?
Mega Count.
Mega Cone. Oh. Guess this is mine now.
Hey!
Say hello to needle-free Neffy, the only epinephrine nasal spray for emergency treatment of allergic reactions, including anaphylaxis, from food, insects, medicines, and other allergy triggers. Use at first signs of allergic reaction. Ask your doctor how to use Neffy. Certain medical conditions may worsen. Tell your doctor about nasal, heart, or other medical conditions. High blood pressure, if you're pregnant or breastfeeding, and all medications. Side effects include nasal discomfort, headache, runny nose, shakiness, and throat irritation. Ask your doctor about needle-free Neffy or learn more at Neffy.com.
This is a story about the one. The one who looks to Grainger to make sparks fly. Getting it done right is a craft. It takes experience, the right material, and the right partner like Grainger with a wide range of professional-grade products. For the one, working hard means others can play even harder. Call, click Grainger.com, or stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
There's the measurement fee, delivery fee, restocking fee.
And installation.
That's not my department.
With Empire's Home Floor Advantage, we have clear, all-inclusive pricing.
800-588-2300 Empire.
Today.
Make a move. I dare you.
With Ring, you can protect your home from anywhere.
Hey guys, Viagra is not your only option. Rose Sparks act fast and stay active longer. They aren't pills. Sparks dissolve under your tongue to reach your bloodstream for speedy results. Sildenafil starts things off strong, and Tadalafil stays in your system for longer. More confidence, more control. Rose Sparks. Connect with a provider at ro.co/sparks.
We've always loved taking care of our home, but last year Grandpa here broke his arm. We realized some home maintenance jobs aren't worth the risk.
That's when we call Leaf Filter to protect our gutters.
Leaf Filter's patented filter technology keeps debris out of your gutters for good.
They gave us a free inspection and we had the system installed that week.
My only regret is not calling them sooner.
Now we can focus on what we really enjoy.
Join millions of satisfied homeowners. Call 833-LEAF-FILTER today or visit leaffilter.com.
If history has taught us anything, it's not to root against the underdog. It pays to know what's coming.
Check the group chat!
Every great leap began with a bold first step. And there's no shortage of second chances. Against impossible odds. You don't stand down. You swing first.
You know what it's time for? Fox Foresight, powered by Google Cloud. And they've got the Jays with 10% chance to have a fifth home run tonight. Jimenez hit the first of all people. Then it was Springer, then Guerrero, and then Kirk. Barger trying to get involved. He's 0 for 4. He's the only guy in the lineup that has not reached. Oh, baby! 100% chance! Google nailed it!
The Fox 4 site, powered by Google Cloud, was incorrect in that case. Blue Jays beating the odds. Addison Barger hits Toronto's 5th home run against the Mariners last night. Jays rebound from an early 2-0 deficit and cut into the Mariners' ALCS lead with a win they had to have on the road. 13-4 win there in Game 3 in Seattle. Seattle hosts Toronto again tonight. The Mariners still do lead the best-of-7 series, 2-1. Also tonight, the NLCS resumes with Game 3 in Los Angeles. The Milwaukee Brewers trying to do what the Jays did there, avoid a 3-0 hole against the Dodgers. Jays had to have that, John. They started hitting the way they've been hitting all season last night. Vladdy Guerrero, who was silent in the first 2 games, just went off last night. Home run, couple of doubles, 4 for 4, I think he was. Huge win for them.
Triple short of the cycle for Vlad. Yeah, and they fell by, remember, the Mariners win the first 2 games. Julio Rodriguez hits a 2-run homer in the first. It's Seattle's up 2-0 in the series, up 2-0 in the game. You're like, here comes the tidal wave. And instead, the Blue Jays put up the 5 spot in the 3rd, and then the bats just never went quiet from there. They had to have it. Now, tonight's interesting. Both teams throw their sort of veteran starter here. Luis Castillo, who's good, but not great for Seattle. And then Max Scherzer, of all people, coming out for Toronto. Didn't pitch that much this year due to injury, but pitched okay. He's certainly got a great postseason resume, won a couple of World Series. That's a pivotal swing game there. We feel like we've got a series there. I'm less confident we have a series in the National League. The Dodgers up 2-0. They go back to L.A. now. Tyler Glasnow pitching tonight against, looks like a bullpen game for Milwaukee. Oh, and they have Shohei Ohtani waiting in Game 4. He hasn't hit much, but the Dodgers haven't needed his bat yet.
He could close it out if it goes to that Game 4 tomorrow night. The Brewers are in the NLCS after eliminating the Chicago Cubs from the playoffs, you'll remember. And that is something Hope Leo, who's a huge Chicago White Sox fan, reminded the person in the crowd at Vatican City. The Pope is just heckling Cubs fans. The White Sox social media team reposting the clip with the caption, "That's our Pope."
I have to think that he is the first Pope who has the MLB app on his phone as well. Checking. I mean, it's probably the time zones make it probably a little hard to watch live there from Rome, from Vatican City. But there's been a number of clips like this where the Pope has engaged with fans, Americans, worshipers, who have some comment about U.S. sports. He knows what's going on, and he certainly didn't miss a chance to make clear he's a White Sox fan. He was happy to see the Cubs lose.
He's the pontiff now, but at his heart, Mika, he's a Chicago guy and was not going to abide any Cubs talk.
Okay, from this, we're going to go to Steve Ratner, who's going to be talking about the K-shaped economy, this period we're going through. So, Steve, you bring us the charts this morning on the health of the U.S. economy, and your first one shows how economic growth is uneven. Explain.
Yeah, Mika. So we've had economic growth now for a number of years, and it is continuing. But there are 2 things happening with economic growth that people should be aware of. The first is it's generally slowing. It's going from here to here, down to just about under 2% in total. From 2.5% in 2024. But what's really interesting is we all talk about AI, and AI is now becoming a significant part of economic growth. AI, back in this whole period here, was only about 10% of economic growth. Now it's 31% of economic growth. And so the actual growth that's filtering down to ordinary Americans is dropping even by more, and it would be 1.1% in the first half of 2025. So that's happening on that side. And then what's happening in terms of wages for people, which partially reflects, obviously, that slowdown in economic growth, is that for the first time in a number of years, people toward the bottom are doing worse than people toward the top. You had a whole period going back to 2016 here, where wages for people at the bottom quartile, were rising faster than for the rest of the other quartiles further up. And then you had COVID, of course, but now it's gone the other way. And so people here in the bottom quartile are seeing their wages only going up by about 3.5% a year, while people up here are seeing them grow by more than 5.5% a year. And so we're seeing now rising income inequality for the first time in a number of years.
And your second chart, Steve, gets at why that is. A lot of it is to do with the explosion of the stock market in the last 5 or 6 years, with the wealthy getting much, much wealthier.
Yeah, we've had this extraordinary period in the stock market where you've had in In 5 out of the last 6 years, you've had the stock market go up by 15% or more, as much as 30%, 25%. Obviously, huge increases, way above what the average American is going to get. And this year, while the year is not quite over yet, we're also on track for a year where the stock market is likely to go, it's not over, likely to go up by 15% a year again. So that's created an enormous amount of wealth, and that's helped. It's not the only thing, but that has helped fuel this purchasing power, huge rise in purchasing power on the part of the very wealthy. You can see if you go back to the beginning of 2020, the people in the top 20% have increased their consumption. They've bought more stuff by 50%. But every other income group has only gone up about 25, which is almost exactly the same of inflation. What does that mean? It means that for the average American, they're really not buying any more stuff than they were buying 4 years ago, which means their standard of living isn't really going up. This group here, actually not this group, the top 10% of Americans account for 50% of everything that's bought in this country today. So think about that. The top 10% of Americans get 50% of the consumption. The bottom 90% of Americans get the other 50% of consumption.
And your third chart is very daring, especially if you're looking for a job right now. The job market looks rough.
Yeah, the job market is clearly getting rough, and that is unusual when you have an economy that's still expanding. But we have a number of things going on. We have tariffs going on. We have economic uncertainty going on. We have AI going on. And all those things together have led to a significant slowdown in the jobs market. We even had 1 month, this last month, where jobs may have declined. We don't have those official numbers yet because of the government shutdown, but ADP, the private forecaster, said we lost jobs last month. But let's look at two interesting things. So ADP, which is a big payroll processing company, as everybody I'm sure knows, for the last 4 months, virtually all the job creation has come from big companies, these red boxes here. The smaller companies, all the way down to the very smallest business, 1 to 19 employees, they've actually been losing jobs for 4 months. Some exceptions, obviously, but in total, losing jobs. So small business has really been hurting. The other thing that's interesting, and these are BLS numbers, Bureau of Labor Statistics numbers, is what kinds of jobs have we been creating? We've been creating jobs in leisure and hospitality, which means restaurants and hotels and things like that. We've been creating jobs in education and health. We obviously are a nation putting more and more into health. But everything else, we've basically been losing jobs. So whether it's finance or even information technology, notwithstanding AI, or the professions like law or business, we're losing jobs at the moment, and we're only creating jobs in these sectors. And so what does all that amount to? It amounts to the fact that more and more Americans are being unemployed for longer and longer. We define long-term unemployment as being unemployed for 27 weeks or more, and that percentage is now up to just over a quarter of all the unemployed are now considered long-term unemployed. Put aside COVID, that is the highest percentage since back here in 2016, and it is rising. And so you have more and more people in the long-term unemployed ranks. So it's not surprising when you look at these polls that you still find huge percentages of Americans who think the economy is getting worse, not better, who think that we're on the wrong track, not the right track. Because when you look at the average, ordinary, everyday Americans, they are simply not getting better off at the moment.
Putting your first and third charts together, the explosion of AI costing some of those jobs as well. So big picture, Steve, we were just talking briefly in the break about this idea of a bubble right now in the stock market. And the fears, as Andrew Ross Sorkin, our friend, is writing about in this new book, 1929, and has been talking about, but he's not alone in this, that there may be some kind of a crash coming. What's your sense of how big the bubble is and how painful the burst might be?
Stocks are very, very expensive. They're as expensive as they've almost ever been when you look at it relative to earnings and things like that. There's no question about that. A lot of what's been driving the stock market, as you know, has been what we call the Magnificent Seven, big technology, mostly big technology companies that are involved in the AI boom. But other stocks are up as well. Look, predicting the stock market is honestly a fool's game. I don't try to do it. I don't think any good investor tries to do it. I personally would be very surprised if we had a crash along the lines of 1929. But it's certainly possible that the stock market will correct in here somewhere. It's had that extraordinary run that we talked about. Has had that extraordinary run that we talked about. And all good things do come to an end. So we could have a significant downturn in the stock market. I don't rule that out, but I'm not expecting 1929.
Morning Joe economic analyst Steve Ratner, thank you very much. As always, we appreciate you. All right, Representative-elect Adelita Grijalva and Democrats continue to call out Speaker Mike Johnson for not swearing her into office. Grijalva won her special election in Arizona on September 23rd. But the Speaker has given several different reasons, including the government shutdown, as to why she hasn't been seated.
There have been Republicans sworn in during pro forma sessions, so why should it be different for a Democrat?
A great question. There was a unique exception made when the two Florida representatives were sworn in earlier this year after winning a special election. And the only reason we did that is because it was previously noticed for that date, and they flew all their families and friends in for the ceremony. So because they were here and the session got canceled, we just went ahead and did it because their families were here. That's the main purpose of it. But,
so if she flies in her family, would you guys do it?
All of us, she'll get the full bells and whistles. It hasn't been scheduled because we don't schedule things for pro forma. No, but they're trying to make an issue out of nothing. I've looked forward to welcoming her. She's congratulated for having won her father's seat. He served a long time. She'll have a great career. But, you know, again, these are distractions. We have to get the government open so that we can get all these regular processes working again. That's all this is.
On Tuesday night, Grijalva and members of the Democratic Women's Caucus marched to Speaker Johnson's office to demand that she be sworn in. And Congresswoman-elect Grijalva joins us now. Thank you so much for coming on the show this morning. What else can you do? Let's look at how long it's been since you were elected as opposed to when you might be sworn in. Are there any avenues, perhaps when the government shutdown ends, that you could take to get sworn in?
Well, there's no estimate into when that's going to happen. So my race was certified 2 days ago. It's been 22 days since my election. There are 3 other members of Congress that were sworn in under 24 hours. And here we are on day 22. And because Congress isn't open and the Speaker hasn't brought the Republicans back, there is no negotiating. There is no opportunity to work towards something that is going to, you know, get the government back open.
So you obviously would like to start serving your constituents and can't do that without being sworn in. What do you think the reasoning is behind the delay? Speaker Johnson says we're in a government shutdown. It can't be done. There were the Florida issues where they'd had a special situation. The family was in town, but we're not going to call your family in town for this. So what do you think is behind this?
The excuses are very, like, depending on the day, they just keep changing. So one time it was that the race wasn't certified, and then where it's pro forma. And so then it continued to like highlight the hypocrisy of your rules keep changing. And so there was a whole freshman class sworn in when the government was shut down. So this idea that Congress is not in session is this Speaker making that decision. This Speaker changing all of the previously scheduled voting sessions.
So, Congresswoman-elect, what do you suspect then? If there's no good reason, what is the incentive for Speaker Johnson not to have you sworn in?
Well, the timing is the fact that I am the 218th signer to the discharge petition for the Epstein files. That is the only thing that I can point to that differentiates me from the other 3 people that were just sworn in recently from their specials. And when you talk about those issues and the fact that there is a lack of transparency from this administration, that I think is the only thing that we can all point to that makes me different from any of the others.
And you will be there on the Hill sooner or later, so you will continue to be that 218th vote. So that day is coming. It seems like they're just delaying it. Can I ask you an on-the-ground question in your district of Arizona? I mean, we talk a lot about the politics of Washington, But the job that you were just elected to do was to serve a whole bunch of people in Tucson and Yuma and towns across Arizona. Who do they call right now for constituent services? How does it work?
They are calling one of our senators, because when my father passed away and this election was called, all of the offices in district were closed on the 23rd of September. So there is nobody serving constituents. And that is the #1 thing that we do as a member of Congress. And so my district has the 3 ports of entry with Mexico. There are a lot of needs, and we're in a government shutdown. So I cannot provide any services. And so fortunately, our senators Gallego and Kelly are working for the constituents in my community, but that's the job that they elected me to do, and I want to do my job.
So, Congresswoman-elect, this comes against the backdrop of the Attorney General in your state warning that she could sue if you're not sworn in soon. Do you think that that is enough to change something here? And separately, on just your day-to-day here on the ground, you're kind of a member of Congress without being a member of Congress. You have an office, but you can't use the computers. One of your staffers had to bring their own printer. I mean, can you talk about that very strange experience?
Yeah, it's basically a space. So the phones are redirected to a voicemail to direct people to either Gallego or Kelly, their offices, for support. We don't have any infrastructure set up. We're not connected to any systems, can't take constituent services. So people said, great, you're in your office, but it's literally an empty space that used to be the one my dad was in. So it's a very different range of emotions that I'm dealing with. But the reality is, if I need something printed, I'm so fortunate that I had somebody that had a printer at home that could bring it in. But I have to stand in security line to get in. I can't be in the rotunda after hours. I mean, there are certain things that you're there, and the caucus is making me feel like part of the family, but every turn you're reminded that I'm not.
Democratic Congresswoman-elect Adelita Grijalva of Arizona, thank you very much. We'll be following this. Thanks for coming on this morning.
Thank you.
And coming up, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries is standing by. He joins us next on Morning Joe.
Save up to 50% on select styles of beautiful new carpet, hardwood, vinyl, and laminate from Empire Today. We'll beat any competitor's offer, guaranteed. Visit EmpireToday.com or call
800-588-2300
Today, Liberty Mutual customizes.
Wait, am I in one of those Liberty Mutual commercials where they stand in front of the Statue of Liberty and talk about how Liberty Mutual customizes your car insurance so you only pay for what you need?
Yes.
Huh. What happens in this one?
Seagulls.
Oh, I like it. How are you doing?
Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Arthritis causes pain in your joints. Unlike pills, Voltaren gel is applied to the site of pain, penetrating deep through the skin to the joint, reducing intense pain caused by inflammation so you can move more freely. Voltaren, clinically proven long-lasting arthritis pain relief.
Feel the power of OsteoBiflex. Taken every day, it's clinically shown to improve joint comfort in 7 days with significant improvement over time. Now, try new advanced omega-3 joint complex.
Put your moderate to severe ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease in check with Rinvoq, a once-daily pill, and it works differently.
I got rapid relief at 2 weeks with Rinvoq. Check.
It helped visibly repair my intestinal lining. Check.
And I got lasting steroid-free remission. Check.
Rinvoq can lower ability to fight infections. Before treatment, test for TB and do blood work. Serious infections, blood clots, some fatal. Cancers including lymphoma and skin. Serious allergic reactions, GI tears, death, heart attack, and stroke occurred. CV event risk increases in age 50+ with a heart disease risk factor. Tell your doctor if you've had these events, infection, Hep B or C, smoked, are pregnant, or planning. Don't take if allergic or have an infection.
Put UC and Crohn's in check and keep them there with Rinvoq.
Ask your gastroenterologist about Rinvoq.
This is Bombas. They took socks and asked, what if they could be way more comfortable? What if comfort could be for everyone? At Bombas, one purchased equals one donated. Get 20% off your first order at bombas.com.
Get in. We're stealing homes. We're not like those other home criminals that steal your stuff. We steal your hard-earned home equity. We find your property online from the public record. Got it. Create a deed transfer that makes us the homeowners. Got it. And borrow tons of cash against your equity, and you won't know till the foreclosure notice hits months later.
You might already be a victim. Check your title status now at HometitleLock.com.
The grind catches up with everyone, even me. That's why I trust Cunol Ultra High Absorption Turmeric to support my joint health. It's the #1 doctor-recommended form of turmeric. It helps you keep doing the things you love at every age. Cunol, the brand I trust.
I authorized for two reasons, really. Number one, they have emptied their prisons into the United States of America. They came in through the, they came in through the border. They came in because we had an open border policy. And the other thing are drugs. We have a lot of drugs coming in from Venezuela. And a lot of the Venezuelan drugs come in through the sea, so you get to see that. But we're going to stop them by land also.
In an unprecedented move by a sitting commander-in-chief, President Trump has confirmed his administration authorized the CIA to launch a covert operation within Venezuela. President Trump was also asked yesterday if the CIA had the authority to, quote, take out Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro. He refused to answer, calling the question ridiculous. The president's remarks come just hours after a report by the New York Times revealed that secret operation. The CIA has declined to respond to the president's comment or report on the actions. This also comes just days after the White House announced its 5th strike on boats in the Caribbean Sea near Venezuela. The administration alleges the boats were carrying drugs bound for the U.S., but has not provided any proof of those claims. Jonathan Lemire, your take on this? They seem to be slowly getting closer and closer in.
Yeah, let's underline that, your last line there. No evidence. They've provided no proof, no evidence of what was on those boats or who was on those boats. We should also note that certainly fentanyl an issue in the United States, but it doesn't come from Venezuela. Venezuela, there are other drugs. It's not fentanyl, contrary to what President Trump has claimed. Also, that boat there, it wasn't speeding to the United States or anywhere else. It was sitting there, parked. There's another boat they blew up earlier. So you see, there you go. There's another boat they blew up earlier in this campaign that had turned around. It would look like they're going back to Venezuela, and they still struck it. And these would be, by all accounts, extrajudicial killings. And it does seem like the president hinted at it yesterday. We've reported as well. There's been some reporting other places that they're growing closer and closer to Venezuela, and they're considering operations within that country's borders, not going so far as say they want regime change, or they've made it clear they want Maduro out, but they are a campaign of aggression only increasing.
And obviously rare when a president of the United States says from a podium in front of the press corps, yes, we have CIA operating in Venezuela. What they're doing, we don't exactly know. Meanwhile, a federal judge granted a temporary restraining order yesterday, blocking the Trump administration from laying off federal workers during the government shutdown. 2 unions sued the administration last month after the White House signaled plans to lay off federal workers through what it calls reductions in force. The judge ruled the layoffs are likely illegal, writing the Trump administration had, quote, taken advantage of the lapse in government spending to act as if the laws do not apply. Join us now, House Minority Leader, Democratic Congressman Hakeem Jeffries of New York. Leader Jeffries, thanks for being here with us this morning. Now, in our 3rd week of this government shutdown, one that I think most Americans and certainly many people who stopped getting their paychecks last week want to see come to an end as soon as possible. Republicans say again and again it is Democrats that are holding up this deal. How do you respond?
Well, we want to see the government shutdown come to an end as well. It never should have occurred. And unfortunately, Donald Trump and the Republicans decided that they would rather shut the government down than provide health care to working class Americans. Our view remains the same, that we want to sit down, find a bipartisan path forward to enact a spending agreement that actually makes life better for the American people, improves the quality of life of the American people, and lowers costs for the American people. We also do need to address the Republican health care crisis, particularly at this moment as it relates to extending the Affordable Care Act tax credits. Open enrollment starts on November 1st. Tens of millions of Americans are receiving notices as we speak that their premiums, copays, and deductibles are about to skyrocket through the roof, pay thousands and thousands of dollars more for their health care, which is going to make it unaffordable for so many people.
Leader Jeffries, I spoke with Majority Leader John Thune yesterday, and he said something that was new to me and all of us on Capitol Hill, the idea that he has privately told Senate Democrats that he would allow them a vote, though he can't guarantee its outcome, on ACA subsidies if they open the government. Have you heard about that from Senator Schumer, and do you think that might be enough to give Democrats what they've been asking for?
I haven't confirmed that that's an actual offer that has been made, but we've been very clear that we need to decisively address the Republican health care crisis. Think about this. They've enacted the largest cut to Medicaid in American history. Hospitals, nursing homes, community-based health centers are closing because of Republican policies all across the country. They refuse to extend the Affordable Care Act subsidies, but they also can find $20 billion to support this right-wing so-called leader in Argentina as part of an effort to bail out a foreign government, but they're unwilling to step in and provide support to working class Americans.
So what I'm hearing from you is it might not be enough that Thune is now saying I could do a vote or a negotiation on ACA subsidies. Would you only agree to reopening the government if it was ACA plus Medicaid rollbacks? Because I don't think that's ever going to happen.
No, what I'm saying is that we need an ironclad path forward that decisively addresses the Republican health care crisis. In terms of the Affordable Care Act, you know, this is a group of people, Republicans, who have tried to repeal the Affordable Care Act more than 70 different times since 2010. They can't be trusted on a wing and a prayer. We need a real path forward to address the crisis that Republicans have visited upon the American people in terms of health care, the cost of living, and affordability.
Leader Jeffries, good morning. We have had President Trump now on a number of occasions direct his Department of Justice, other officials to go after his political foes. We have seen the indictments of James Comey and Letitia James. Yesterday, he named some other names he'd like to see be investigated. We also have this coming weekend, we talked about it earlier in the show, these No Kings rallies, which were large and peaceful last time around. But Speaker Johnson last night, Senator Ted Cruz, others have suggested that these events, in their words, could lead to riots. These are America-hating individuals gathering here. And combine that with the reporting from the Wall Street Journal and other places, the president trying to mobilize the IRS and other levers of government. Are you to go after his enemies? Do you have fears here that the dissent, the sacred American tradition of free speech and dissent is at risk?
Well, we certainly have no fear as it relates to this administration. They're trying to intimidate people and silence them. That's not going to happen. But it is quite unfortunate that leaders in the House and the Senate within the administration are trying to fan the flames of dissent as it relates to what has been a peaceful expression of concern, petitioning the government to change policies. And there are no kings in the United States of America, no dictators, no monarchs. The framers of the Constitution were very clear that Congress, for instance, should focus as a separate and co-equal branch of government and a check and balance on a potentially out-of-control executive branch. The problem with my Republican colleagues is that they've been nothing more than a reckless rubber stamp for Donald Trump's extreme policies. They are hurting the American people. Their one big ugly bill hurt everyday Americans in order to reward their billionaire donors with massive tax breaks that they made permanent.
House Minority Leader, Democratic Congressman Hakeem Jeffries of New York, thank you very much for being on the show this morning.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. All right, take care. Coming up on Morning Joe, we'll show you the moment on Capitol Hill when Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi shut down a far-right reporter's questions about a January 6th conspiracy theory. And we'll go through the implications of the Pentagon's press policy as dozens of journalists took a stand yesterday, turning in their credentials. Also ahead, actor Richard Gere joins us in studio in our fourth hour of Morning Joe. We'll be right back.
Eggs make all our family moments better, especially when they're Eggland's Best. Taste so fresh and amazing, deliciously superior nutrition, too. For us, it's eggs any style. as long as they're the best. Eggland's best.
I am going to do something right now that is going to just go, what? We're going to give you all of our best wrinkle-fighting products in one system.
Ellen DeGeneres has a skincare line, and I just found out about this. I was suffering with dryness, dullness, and that dreaded turkey neck. I've been using this for about a month now. 3 things I'm really noticing. The neck area is starting to smooth, visually firmer, plumper skin. And I notice my skin is staying hydrated all day long. Firm it up with some firming serum. Let's go. I'm already feeling the tightening happening. Tighter, tighter, tighter. Crazy about the hydration cream. You only need a little, but I want to like slather it all over me. Saving the best for last. These are my top 2 favorites. The neck cream, bye-bye turkey neck. This radiance oil, it is going to make you do all the glowy things.
Is that good? It's going to be 6 products. It's going to be called the No Fuss Visible Wrinkle Reducer. If you bought each of these individually, it would be $250. I did the math. You don't have to do it. Just trust me. But no, it's going to be $79.95 for this system. It's going to be the introductory wrinkle fighting system, okay? But then I'm going to give it to you for $59.95. All 6. I know. Believe me, I'm shaking my head. Anyway, today, if you do it, I'm going to give you 2 free gifts. They're going to be gifts, and they're going to be free. You'll get them if you order today. $59.95 for all 6. Come on now.
Sold separately, you'd pay over $250 for all this. The Kind Science Deluxe Wrinkle Fighting System is $79.95. But with this DeGeneres deal, save 25% today. And get this introductory system for just $59.95. Plus 2 free gifts and free shipping. You're holding your phone, so get this deal now. Scan the code, go to kindscience.com, or call the number to order right now.
You are a high-ranking official in the Royal Andromedan Court.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
On October 31st, the truth.
We have 4 days to save planet Earth.
Will shock you.
I know what you are.
I know you too.
Begonia, rated R. In select theaters October 24th and everywhere October 31st.
It's here, the party shop at Michael's Balloon Bar. Choose from over 700 balloon styles and free helium on select styles. Celebrating is easier than ever. Michael's, everything to celebrate anything.
Ever worry that you're drinking too much? Take back control with Or Health. Or Health provides access to medication proven to help. A daily pill to drink less, or to quit drinking altogether. Text TV1 to 710-710 to learn more.
$600 a year. If you're 50 plus, you could save up to that much by switching 2 unlimited lines from Big Wireless to Consumer Cellular. So why don't you pick up your phone while I take this hammer and see how we can cut your bill. Call Consumer Cellular.
You know, at Leaf Filter, we're proud to say we have millions of satisfied customers. Hey, there's one right now. And another. Leaf Filter stops needles, acorns, leaves, and more. No louvers, no openings, nowhere for debris to get in at all. And guess what, cred like that, it's only natural to have fans. Apparently a lot of fans. Apparently a whole lot of fans. Call 833-LEAF FILTER or visit leaffilter.com.
Hey guys, Viagra is not your only option. Rose Sparks act fast and stay active longer. They aren't pills. Sparks dissolve under your tongue to reach your bloodstream for speedy results. Sildenafil starts things off strong, and Tadalafil stays in your system for longer. More confidence, more control. Rose Sparks. Connect with a provider at ro.co/sparks.
Are you at all concerned about the new January 6th committee finding you liable for that day? Why did you refuse the National Guard on January 6th?
Shut up. I did not refuse the National Guard. The president didn't send it. Why are you coming here with Republican talking points as if you're a serious journalist?
The American people want to know. We still have questions. Thank you.
That's actually Nancy Pelosi had the question.
The American people want to know what the American people know.
We want to know.
The American people know that what the American people want to know why so many people are too stupid to know the truth. That's what the American people want to know. Like they're fed disinformation by Lindell Network and by all these other right-wing networks.
Media.
Like this lie, like that it was January 6th. Nancy Pelosi refused. No, that's a lie. But it's amazing, Mika, how these lies become truth. In part, they become truth because more Democrats don't do what Nancy Pelosi just did right there. The lies are everywhere. On the far right, and they're all around January 6th. The lies continue. They try to do investigations where there are lies. We're going to see the president talking about investigating the investigators again after they spent years with John Durham doing the same thing, spending millions and millions of taxpayers, again, pursuing lies. And yet, this is the American people. No, the American people know there are a group of people who intentionally want to believe lies on the MAGA right. It's like Jesus said, there are people who like could go into the light, but they choose the darkness instead. That's a spiritual side. We're talking politics here. Far less significant, of course, but people can know the truth, but they don't like the truth. So they keep spouting lies to Nancy Pelosi and other people about January 6th when they know the truth. They've even tried to erase that attempt to throw out a presidential election from their minds. And now they want to go on, and now they want to prosecute other people who they think, oh, Joe Biden's sick on Donald Trump. My God. We're going to show a clip, Mika, coming up. It's unbelievable. We're going to show a clip of the president inside the White House with his attorney general, FBI director, and other people standing by, just sitting there shuffling their feet while Donald Trump, president of the United States, says, this person should be arrested, this person should be arrested. Could you imagine what Lindell TV, can you imagine what the far right, what the MAGA right would have done if Joe Biden had held a press conference in the Oval Office saying, I want these 4 or 5 Republicans arrested? They would have gone crazy. And the question is, when are Republicans on the Senate Judiciary Committee going to say something? When are the Republicans on the House Judiciary Committee going to say something? When are the far right-wing podcasters going to say something, saying, this is really dangerous because they're going to come after us next? If this is the new normal in Washington, D.C., we might be next. No. This has to stop. And here is a president, I've said it before, I'll say it again. Here is a president that had a historic breakthrough in Middle East peace. And 2 days later, he's just completely stepping on every good headline by talking about continuing to pursue political enemies. It makes no political sense for him. It's bad for Republicans. It's bad for Democrats. It's bad for everybody. And yet it continues. Republicans need to speak up. And for God's sake, when is the United States Supreme Court going to stop all the ambiguity so Americans can stop being like thrown to the ground and beaten up and arrested, only to be released later on? By law enforcement officials, like going after illegal immigrants? Like when? The pace is quickening, and it's quickening every day. And if Republicans don't speak out, and if the Supreme Court doesn't do its damn job, then what we're looking at is the new normal. And that's a new normal that doesn't just hurt Democrats now. It hurts Republicans later. It hurts independents. It hurts all of us. It weakens the Constitution. It weakens political norms. It makes this democracy a much more dangerous place to live, a more dangerous place to speak your first. I mean, we're talking about now an attorney general that's calling people that are peacefully marching like terrorists, saying they're as dangerous as MS-13. We had a 1 million man march when I was in Congress. We had mostly Republicans come and march in Washington, D.C. There were no Democratic attorney generals calling us terrorists or calling for our arrests. None. Is that what Republicans on Capitol Hill and sitting in the Supreme Court, and yes, they are Republicans. Sorry, Chief Justice Roberts. We'll stop calling them Republicans when they stop acting like Republicans. But that's what they're doing. They're sitting back and they're letting this be the new normal, and it has to stop for everybody's sake. Damn, this is not hard. Put up guardrails, institutional guardrails that James Madison put up, that political leaders of both parties have put up over the past 240 years. And let's talk about Middle East peace again. Because, you know, that's kind of nice. When you have something that everybody can, like, talk about in a positive way, when a president's doing something to make the world a better, safer place. That's what we want. That's what every American wants. Okay, let's not, like, get peace abroad in the Middle East where it's never been and keep churning up a political fight at home. Who wants that? Maybe 33% of Americans want that, but most Americans want their government working. They want it open. They want Republicans and Democrats working together. And right now, Mika, just the opposite is happening.
Well, Joe, as you mentioned, speaking at an event in the Oval Office yesterday while flanked by the country's top law enforcement officials, President Trump once again called for the prosecutions of his perceived political foes.
Jack Smith, in my opinion, is a criminal. And I noticed his interviewer was, I think that was Weissman. And I hope they're going to look into Weissman, too. Weissman's a bad guy. And he had somebody in Lisa, who was his puppet, worked in the office really as the top person. And I think that she should be looked at very strongly. I hope they're looking at Shifty Schiff. I hope they're looking at all these people. And I'm allowed to find out. I'm allowed to, you know, I'm, in theory, the chief law enforcement officer. But I have a very good, talented group.
Nope. Okay, I will check on that. The president made those comments while standing alongside FBI Director Kash Patel, Attorney General Pam Bondi, and her top deputy, Todd Blanche. This call for action against a list of rivals follows recent indictments of two others that he singled out for prosecution, former FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James. As the New York Times puts it, yesterday's event was, quote, a diorama of the administration's lopsided power dynamic between a president bent on controlling federal law enforcement and appointees unwilling or unable to fight for the historic independence of their institutions. Trump, the Times goes on to write, has, quote, established a cadre of political surrogates and lockstep messengers willing to cast aside core departmental norms to serve his political agenda. And Willie will cap this off where we began with that question from Pillow Guy TV reporter asking why didn't Nancy Pelosi call in the National Guard. That was about a bunch of rioters who stormed, they're pardoned. So as people are being called terrorists on the streets of Portland or whatever, the January 6 rioters pardoned, out of jail.
Convicted criminals who went
criminals.
before a jury who's decided that they had committed those crimes.
Let's not forget.
Put them in jail, and then the President of the United States opened those jails upon his second inauguration. Let's bring in the co-host of our fourth hour, staff writer at The Atlantic, Jonathan Lemire, and Politics Bureau Chief and Senior Political Columnist at Politico, Jonathan Martin. Jonathan Lemire, start with you, just watching the President of the United States say what he said yesterday, again, with the FBI Director and the Attorney General behind him. You get the sense he really does believe he is the chief law enforcement officer of the United States. He's not. That's the Attorney General standing behind him, but he believes he is the one calling the shots. And for them to stand behind him and nod along as he says these things, put that together with a Wall Street Journal report we're going to talk about this morning about the IRS, him installing someone at the top of the IRS who then can investigate Soros and other perceived enemies and boogeymen of the right over the years. He is forming a group of people around him who effectively don't recognize the limits of our government and the separation of the powers put in the Constitution, that he is directing everything from the top.
It's not just that there aren't guardrails anymore. He's being emboldened to do this. And there was a moment, we played that clip where he said, I hope someone looks into them. And he actually, literally, you could see his eyes shift to his right where Kash Patel was standing. I mean, it's so clear. Whether it's a direct order, like he gave in that True Social post that was meant to be a DM to Pam Bondi and ended up being sent wide for all to see, or this, where he creates an atmosphere where he makes it very clear who his political enemies are, and therefore he wants them to be investigated. We've never been here before. I know that's a phrase we say a lot, but this time it is really warranted, and it is really dangerous. This is the President of the United States just simply saying, I don't like person X, person Y, person Z, with no evidence, supplying no accusations of a crime. He's never said what Jack Smith allegedly did. A couple weeks ago, where he called for the arrest of the Illinois governor and Chicago mayor, there was no suggestion as to what law they broke, because there aren't any. And at minimum, and Willie, as you said, we'll get into that IRS reporting in a moment. At minimum, they harass someone, they make their life expensive and aggravating. When the federal government looks into you, that is an all-consuming, expensive proposition. But there could also be criminal charges attached, and who knows how that plays out. We have seen arraignments already of two of his foes, in Letitia James and James Comey. And I wrote this last week for The Atlantic. Retribution is here. He promised this during the campaign. White House aides would tell us in the first few months of this term, oh, we're too busy, we're not getting to that. Well, here we are. It is October of his first term in office. We have 3 odd years to go. The campaign has begun and clearly accelerating already.
And you can't find a Republican who will give a full-throated condemnation of what we're hearing here. Jonathan Martin, also, Joe mentioned this at the top, there are going to be these No Kings protests this weekend. Millions of people protesting this administration and all the things we've just described. You had the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, suggesting that those are anti-America protests, that they'll be populated with members of Antifa and pro-Hamas supporters, as he put it. Marxists will be among them. Speaker Johnson calling them the Hate America rallies. These are peaceful protests of this administration, and you have the Speaker of the House suggesting that they are effectively terrorists, some of them.
Yeah, I actually happened to be in New York, Willie, during the first No Kings protest. It was more of an NPR tote bag crowd than it was a sort of Antifa vibe. Those are the kind of folks showing up for those protests. But this is the project now that you see stretching from Johnson to the White House, which is portray the opposition as not, grandmas carrying NPR tote bags, but portray them as radicals who are bent on violence. And obviously that does not reflect the vast majority of the opposition. I'm reminded of something that Joe said on the show a couple of weeks ago, guys, which is the scandal is in the open now. You don't have to go to a garage in Roslyn to meet Deep Throat to get the scoop on what Trump is doing. He's literally doing every day, calling some kind of a press conference or signing an EO in the Oval Office, going off script, and yesterday, for example, demanding investigations into people whose names he can't even recall. He says Lisa but not her last name, Wiseman but not his first name. But the folks standing behind him sure as heck know who that is. And they're now made to act. It's all in plain view. And I think that does reduce the shock value some, because it is out in the open every damn day.
All right.
Well, and also, Jonathan, you have Jonathan. You have in Pam Bondi, the New York Times, talking about how she has compared some of the people who are protesting the ICE raids, who, again, if you look at the actual ICE facility cam that the Oregon ABC affiliate has put up, there are literally grandmas and granddads sitting in lawn chairs with tote bags. And holding signs that say, don't take the bait, which is basically saying, stay peaceful. She is comparing all those people, she said, to an organized crime. They're part of an organized crime syndicate. You have one of the top Republicans, Tom Emmers, saying that people that go to these No Kings rallies, again, a lot of NPR tote bag types going to these rallies, calling them terrorists. Said the word terrorists, like trying to are they trying to churn up political violence, or what are they trying to do? Are they trying to get these people beaten up? Like, what are they trying to do? This is coming from the top. It's coming from the president. It's what we just showed. It's coming from the speaker. And I would just say, you, like me, we've been around Washington a long time. Don't these Republicans that are staying silent on Capitol understand what goes around comes around? These are horrible precedents that are being set, and their voices need to be heard. They need to speak out, because if it ever turns against them, they need to be on the record, and they need to encourage Democrats to fight back to protect them down the road.
And Joe, the one moment of any outcry that we've seen, at least in the last month, from the Senate GOP was precisely Ted Cruz saying just that about the FCC's intervention on Jimmy Kimmel, which was, this is not just about Kimmel, it's about us. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, when Democrats control the FCC, they're going to come back at us. So, I mean, if you don't do this from a principled standpoint, Joe, to your point, at least do it from a raw political standpoint, which is to say, if we okay this now, boy, it's going to be just as bad when the other guy's in charge. You would think they would have the self-interest, at least, to recognize that what comes around goes around, but we ain't seen it so far.
Coming up, we're going to talk about that new reporting in the Wall Street Journal this morning on the administration's effort to use the IRS to investigate the president's opponents. That's next on Morning Joe.
CBIZ. Your company started in the kitchen.
Hello?
Now it has 3. Your team of 5 grew to an army of 500. And that's your logo, right there in marble.
That's big.
To grow your business from big to bigger, you need an advisor built for the middle market.
Our data shows that this deal works.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Accounting, advisory, insurance, and more. CBIZ. Insights that impact.
Liberty Mutual customizes.
Wait, am I in one of those Liberty Mutual commercials where they stand in front of the Statue of Liberty and talk about how Liberty Mutual customizes your car insurance so you only pay for what you need?
Yes.
Huh. What happens in this one?
Seagulls.
Oh, I like it. How are you doing?
Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Feel the power of Osteo Biflex. Taken every day, it's clinically shown to improve joint comfort in 7 days with significant improvement over time. Now, try new advanced omega-3 joint complex.
For a limited time, save up to 50% on select styles of beautiful new carpet, hardwood, vinyl, and laminate flooring from Empire today. Plus, we'll beat any competitor's offer, guaranteed. And our price includes everything, installed flooring and even furniture moving. Get Empire's Home Floor Advantage and save up to 50% off. Visit EmpireToday.com or give us a call to schedule your free estimate. You know the number.
800-588-2300
Today.
Age-related memory decline? Meet new Cunol Brain Health, the first and only tablet to combine 2 high-absorption ingredients, clinically shown to improve memory, focus, attention, and more. Trust Cunol for more comprehensive brain health support.
This is a story about the one who never stops. She needs a reliable partner, like Granger, who works around the clock. Because she knows the domino effect is real. And there's never a good time for downtime. When it's all on the line, having the supply she needs makes all the difference. The industrial-grade products you need, all in one place. Call, click Grainger.com, or stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
If you have wet AMD or DME, you never want to lose sight of the things you love. And your condition doesn't have to steal the moment. Long-lasting EYLEA HD delivers powerful vision improvements that can save your vision for the future. EYLEA HD is the only treatment for wet AMD and DME that helped at least 8 out of 10 people go up to 4 months between injections after 3 initial monthly treatments. Don't take EYLEA HD if you have an eye infection, eye pain, redness, or are allergic to it. Eye injections like EYLEA HD may cause eye infection, separation of the retina, rare but severe swelling of blood vessels in the eye, or increased eye pressure. There is an uncommon risk of heart attack or stroke. There's still so much to see. Ask about next generation EYLEA HD, a treatment retina specialists trust.
At Bright Star Care, our nurse-led care anticipates needs before they are voiced. From skilled nursing and medication management to companion care that renews the soul. We'll be there.
Doctors recommend Colay stool softener for gentle, dependable relief from constipation. It's so gentle, doctors even recommend it during pregnancy and after surgery. Colay's increases water in the stool, making it softer so it's easier to go. Also available in delicious gummies and soft chews.
I think if someone sat around our show and rolled through the breaks, we don't say anything different to our guests than we say to our viewers. And if we've had a conversation in the break that feels like we've cheated on the viewer,
let's say this for the show.
We will then go back and tell the audience what we talked about in the break.
Here's the new report that Willie mentioned from the Wall Street Journal, which says the Trump administration is paving the way to make it easier for the IRS to criminally investigate left-leaning groups, including major Democratic donors. According to the Journal, quote, the undertaking aims to install allies of President Trump at the IRS Criminal Investigative Division to exert firmer control over the unit and to weaken the involvement of IRS lawyers. The paper adds, quote, the proposed changes could open the door to politically motivated probes. The effort is being driven by a top advisor to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who is also serving as acting IRS commissioner. Among the potential targets are billionaire donor George Soros and his affiliated groups. Joining us now, the president and CEO of Voto Latino, Maria Teresa Kumar. Good to have you on the show this morning. What do you make of this new reporting from the Journal?
So this is something, Mika, first of all, that a lot of the nonprofits have been tracking, because this is what is coming to fruition is what we were absolutely concerned with. Because if folks remember, when he was on the campaign trail, he promised that he was going to go after his political enemies. One of the first things that he did as an executive order was trying to basically say to the American people that if you were against him, he was going to go after you. And he has done that. Trump is someone that I have from the very beginning, the moment he descended those escalators in his first presidential campaign, calling the majority of Latinos criminals and rapists, I took him at his word. And so I took him at his word that this is what he was going to happen. But I think what folks need to remember is that civil society, and active civil society, whether we're talking about protests, whether we're talking about activating individuals to sign a petition or to hold our community, our electeds accountable, that is a fundamental core to democracy. I appreciate, Joe, what you've been saying all morning about that. This is something that's gone awry. This idea that they are trying to really, tamper down on dissent is not only dangerous for the American people, but there's no ability then for us to actually fight back when you see egregious abuse of power. power. And one of the things that we're very clear in in the nonprofit sector is that as we prepare for the midterms, we have to make sure that the American people are very clear what the stakes are, because this is not just about policy, it's about the very core values of who we are as Americans. Can you protest peacefully? Are you going to be afraid at night because all of a sudden you have to walk around with a passport because all of a sudden someone says you may be undocumented? We don't know. What's happening right now in Chicago is abysmal. This idea that we're using Black Hawk helicopters and agents are rappelling from buildings to go into apartment buildings and basically figuring out who is black and who is brown and shuttling them off in the middle of the night in two different sets of vans while zip tying 5-year-olds. Joe, this is at a core value of who we are, and they're literally trying to use law enforcement against us so that they can go ahead, the administration can go ahead and pillage our coffers. And I think it's very clear that what they're doing is they're taking a sheet out of what Oregon did in Hungary. If anybody wants to know what's happening right now, I encourage you to read Ann Applebaum's latest book that really details every single thing that they've done in Hungary. This administration has read it, and they're applying it here.
Coming up, an MSNBC exclusive with Senate Majority Leader John Thune, what he says about the fight over health care and whether he would accept medical advice from HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Thune's conversation with Ali Vitale when Morning Joe comes right back.
I have active psoriatic arthritis, but with Skyrizi to treat my skin and joints, I'm ready for this moment. Along with clearer skin, Skyrizi helps me move with less joint pain, stiffness, swelling, and fatigue. And it's just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses.
Don't use if allergic. Serious allergic reactions, increased infections, or lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, get checked for infections and TB. Tell your doctor about any flu-like symptoms or vaccines.
There's nothing like clearer skin and better movement, and that means everything. Ask your doctor about Skyrizi today. Learn how AbbVie could help you save.
Consumer Cellular knows there are a lot of offers flying around, but they slip away too fast. We don't play games. What you see is what you get. Bet you're glad you wore cargo pants. See how we can cut your bill. Call Consumer Cellular.
For gentle, dependable constipation relief, try Senecot. It works differently than other laxatives because it's made from the senna plant, a natural vegetable laxative ingredient. Gentle, dependable Senecot. Also available in great-tasting gummies and soft chews.
No matter what you drive, there's only one guarantee. It's gonna break down.
I had a sensor light up on my dashboard.
There was a popping noise.
The last thing I remember is just the engine cut out.
Your next breakdown could be anytime, anywhere, whether you've got the money to fix it or not.
It was a thermostat, $2,600.
Seat sensor, $1,400.
But if you've got endurance, you could never pay out of pocket for a car repair again, no matter how much it cost them to cover it.
In my first year with Endurance, they covered a $14,000 engine replacement.
It was like almost a $6,000 job. If I didn't have Endurance, I would have had to pay for that or just trash the whole car and start again.
If your car's out of warranty, a transmission can easily cost you $4,000.
And an engine? Over $7,000, if you're lucky.
With Endurance, those parts are covered.
The bad camera unit, $800 to repair a bad wheel bearing, over $1,000. A new steering rack, close to $3,000. Endurance covered it fully.
Plus, you pick the mechanic you trust to do the work.
It's a totally seamless process going to any certified mechanic. They submit the claim directly to Endurance. They get paid, and I'm out the door.
You trust us to do the work, and we trust Endurance to pay us direct.
And the best part, your rate stays locked in no matter how many claims you file.
If your car's under 20 years old, Endurance has you covered with unlimited miles. Plus, your plan includes 24/7 roadside assistance anywhere in the country.
So, who's gonna pay for your next breakdown? You?
Or Endurance.
Right now, you can get $300 off any plan, plus a year of elite benefits, a $2,000 value, free, all backed by a 30-day money-back guarantee. But you have to act now. Visit EnduranceWarranty.com or call 1-833-496-4406 for a free quote. That's 1-833-496-4406.
Machine learning is advancing, but businesses wonder if some machines can keep up.
Let's welcome our new coworker, Jeff.
Copier has a great idea.
Wonder if it's the same idea as yesterday.
It's a performance issue, really. I know people push your buttons, but you still have to deliver.
Anything can change the world of work. ADP Assist is AI, informed by workplace data, and designed for the next anything.
AI can turn your lights on.
Lights on.
And drive your car. And even write your kid's essay. But AI ain't gonna fix your broken water line or pay for the big repair bill. Having a plan from HomeServe offers real solutions. And when a covered system breaks, we'll send a qualified contractor and pay for the repair. There's nothing artificial about the peace of mind you get with a plan from HomeServe. Getting one is quite intelligent.
Plans from HomeServe start at just $4.99 a month.
Call 1-833-812-1903 or visit homeserve.com.
Hey guys, Viagra is not your only option. Rose Sparks act fast and stay active longer. They aren't pills. Sparks dissolve under your tongue to reach your bloodstream for speedy results. Sildenafil starts things off strong, and Tadalafil stays in your system for longer. More confidence, more control. Rose Sparks. Connect with a provider at ro.co/sparks.
Dozens of reporters turned in their press credentials at the Pentagon yesterday after most news organizations, including MSNBC, refused to sign a new Pentagon press policy. Those new rules would restrict press access to large portions of the Pentagon without an escort. Also states Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth can revoke access to reporters who ask anyone in the DoD for information, classified or not, that has not been approved for release. Many of the reporters waited to leave together at 4 p.m. yesterday, the deadline set by the Defense Department to leave the building. In a statement, the Pentagon Press Association, which represents over 50 outlets, said the DoD confiscated their media credentials, quote, because reporters would not sign on to a new media policy over its implicit threat of criminalizing national security reporting and exposing those who sign it to potential prosecution. The association said members are still committed to reporting on the U.S. military and mark the moment as what they call a dark day for press freedom that raises concerns about a weakening U.S. commitment to transparency and governance, to public accountability at the Pentagon, and to free speech for all. Earlier this week, Secretary Hegseth said the press access to the Pentagon is a privilege, not a right. Far right-wing cable channel One America News Network appears to be the only outlet that's publicly stated it has signed the Pentagon policy. So, Jonathan, an act of solidarity yesterday. You had Fox News and MSNBC and Newsmax and CNN all together walking out in protest of a policy which explicitly says you can only report what we tell you you can report.
Yeah, and that was good to see, that solidarity from a variety of media outlets. And to be clear, these reporters, these places, still going to do their jobs. They can do their jobs from outside of the building, but there are now new obstacles to face here. And there are a couple things at play. First of all, yes, this is the Pentagon trying to drive home its talking points, trying to spoon feed information to reporters, saying you can only report on what we tell you to do. No reporter, of course, is going to abide by that. It's also a very thin-skinned Secretary of Defense who had a rough go of it in his confirmation hearings, who had rough media coverage because of his role in the Signalgate scandal, and he is afraid of being embarrassed in front of the President of the United States. He is someone who still is thought of well by the President, but very few others in the White House, I am told. He's being very protective of his image and reputation. But this is a dangerous escalation, trying to curtail press freedoms. The President has mused about doing something similar at the White House. Perhaps Capitol Hill will be next. It is deeply worrisome and another example of this administration trying to deliver an assault against the freedom of the press, freedom of speech.
Coming up, a conversation with Congressman Jamie Raskin of Maryland. We'll talk about the government shutdown, the midterm elections, and what he calls the president's assault on American workers. Morning Joe is back in a moment.
COPD is an ugly reality.
Do you have his medical history?
I watch as this world just keeps getting smaller. But then, Trelegy helped us see things a little differently. With 3 medicines and 1 inhaler, Trelegy keeps airways open for a full 24 hours and prevents future flare-ups. Once daily Trelegy also improves lung function, so he can breathe more freely all day and night.
Trelegy won't replace a rescue inhaler for sudden breathing problems. Tell your doctor if you have a heart condition or high blood pressure before taking it. Do not take Trelegy more than prescribed. Trelegy may increase your risk of thrush, pneumonia, and osteoporosis. Call your doctor if worsened breathing, chest pain, mouth or tongue swelling, problems urinating, vision changes, or eye pain occur.
Ask your doctor about once daily Trelegy for COPD, because breathing should be beautiful all day and night.
I am going to do something right now that is going to just go, what? We're going to give you all of our best wrinkle-fighting products in one system.
Ellen DeGeneres has a skincare line, and I just found out about
you.